All right. All right, there we go. Check my levels. Make sure everything's working all right. All right. All right, ready?
Ready to roll.
All right. Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 5 of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. My name is Wayne. I'm here once again with Steve. How's it going today?
Going good, Wayne. Good to be with you once again.
Seems like we just talked yesterday.
As a matter of fact, it does. I wasn't far removed from that Durham there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We had a good time, and that was actually the very first time I have ever been to the Durham Bulls baseball park. So it was thrilling for me to see that. I've heard a lot about it over the years. I'm surprised I've never been there, but it's one of those things, you just got to make the time to do it, and that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, Steve and I got together for lunch yesterday to discuss a bunch of different things, podcast related and so on, and we decided to just meet at a place that actually sits right on the outfield wall and the left field wall at the Durham Bulls Athletic Park right there in downtown Durham. So he had a great view, great weather. It was a good lunch. It was all around good afternoon. So
Yeah.
all right, well, so what we have to do this week is we got to get you caught up with everything that's gone on since we last recorded. And some of the things that I've seen come across is, of course, preseason games are now underway. And I know that makes both of you and I very happy.
Yes.
And opening night is actually less than 2 weeks away now. So
Yeah.
we're getting close.
Getting very close now. We actually won a game Monday night in preseason, so I was thrilled about that. But I've been watching some hockey now and getting back into it. So it's a great time of year. This is a great time of year. Sports starts up and the baseball playoffs come along, and
Yep.
you got all kinds of stuff going on in the sports world.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, with the preseason games, sometimes they're a little difficult to find the TV or watching the games because not every game is televised like it is in the regular season. So finding the games to watch can be kind of tricky, and I've been able to do some scratching and clawing and get both Bruins games. At least been able to watch bits and pieces of them anyway. But the Carolina games, the one that they played last night, I couldn't find a feed anywhere. So all I was able to do was listen to that one. So
Yeah.
But yeah, what's going on basically right now is most of the teams started out with about 60 players coming into camp, and they're starting to pare them down. And most teams have already sent juniors back to or some of the juniors back to their junior team. Some of the minor leaguers back to the American Hockey League and so on. So the teams are starting to dwindle down already as we get down to, I think 23 is the roster maximum that they're allowed to carry into the regular season. So they're working their way towards that. And then, of course, this week we're going to continue our preview of all the 31 NHL teams. And this week we're focusing in on the Metro Division. So we'll have that later tonight. And then stay tuned at the end of the show for more details on our Fantasy Hockey League. If you're into that, we've got some news on that front. And then I wanted to ask you, too, before we got going, Steve, in watching the games, what are your first impressions on what I see? There's a couple things that I see. Number one was all of the face-off violation penalties that have been going on around the league, and number two,
Yeah.
how easily or how lightly a player can tap a guy on the hands and get a penalty.
Yeah, listen. It was shocking, and I don't have the stats here in front of me, Wayne. But I bet there were. I would not be surprised if there were 15 penalties, 15 power plays in the Rangers New York Islanders game.
Yep.
There was tons of them. I think there were over 10, but there was a lot. There was a tremendous amount of power plays, and nobody converted on them. The Rangers scored in overtime in that game. But I felt like the officiating was extremely close. I thought there was actually some poor calls. That's my take on it. It is preseason, and it doesn't really matter. But
yeah, I think my impression is with the face-off violations, they're essentially just enforcing the rules that are already there. If you look closely at the face-off dot, it's a circle. But each end of the circle, there's a little bit of a white space on each end. And the face-off procedures are supposed to be that the players are supposed to put their stick inside that little white space at each end of the circle, which gives the referee or the linesman, whoever's dropping the puck, space in between the sticks in order to drop the puck onto. But over the years, you've had centers who do all kinds of things, and I referee, so I see some of the stuff that they do. They do all kinds of things to try to gain a competitive advantage over their opponent, whether they move their feet outside those lines, keep their stick outside that little white space. All they're trying to do is make the face-off fair for everybody. And right now, it's kind of difficult to watch because you're seeing centers getting kicked out of the face-off left and right. You're even seeing penalties because if you have two face-off violations in the same drop, it's a delay game penalty. So we've seen those penalties, which we hadn't seen before in the past. So I think what will end up happening, as long as the officials keep doing it and keep it consistent across all the games, the players will adjust and they'll learn.
Right.
And I think you'll see that the some of the guys that have been getting away with what I basically call cheating in the face-off circle are no longer going to be able to do so as long as they stick to enforcing this. And the other thing I've seen is the amount of slashing calls that you're getting. And it's all just little, as a player is going by another player, a little tap on the hands. Normally, if the puck, if it didn't cause a change of possession and the player kept moving with the puck and it didn't really affect the play, they were letting those go left and right last year. Now, every little tap, if it's not, a whack on the lower part of the stick, which is legal, but if the tap is up too high, up close to the hands or on the hands, it's being called a slash every time. I think that's good for us as viewers because it's going to create more power plays, which in turn is going to create more goals. Now, it's going to burn our teams. We're going to be pissed about it, but in the long run, you're going to see it again. They're enforcing rules that are already there, and it will allow the top offensive players to do what they can do with less obstruction. So they're just recentering the standard a little bit to get things a little bit back in line because players have been getting away with those whacks on the hands for quite a while now, and they're just fixing some stuff that they've been allowing to happen. So that's all I see.
Right. It was consistent. It's not like there was a bias towards in the game that I watched a couple nights ago towards either team, but it was quite a bit of a leap up in terms of the number of calls.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, before we move any further, let me go ahead and remind everybody that we do encourage everyone to get involved in the show, and you can get in touch with us by reaching out to us via Twitter is probably the fastest way. I'm at Wayne Halley 9, and Steve is at SBall504man. You can email the show at feedback@thehockeynuts.com. And a little note on that, I ran into a little trouble with that email address with our provider for our website, and for some reason, the email part of it stopped working for seems like maybe a day or two. So if you had tried to send us email in that 24 to 48 hour period, it might have not gone through, but that has since been fixed. So everything is back to working again. But anyway, the email is feedback@thehockeynuts.com. You can reach us through our Facebook page at facebook.com/thehockeynuts. And you can reach us right through our YouTube channel at thehockeynuts.com/YouTube. And, of course, we have been streaming the recording of our show so that you can actually watch us record the show and make it. You can actually watch us either live as we do it, and generally we record around 6:30 on Wednesday nights. Tonight we're doing it a little bit early because I actually have to work later on tonight, and overnight at work. So I wanted to get the show done and out of the way before I have to go into work. But you can also watch us after the fact. If you don't want to just listen to us and you actually want to see our ugly mugs, then you can certainly do so. And you can just reach the YouTube page at thehockeynuts.com/YouTube. And then as far as listening to the show on as a podcast, you can reach us through iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Google Play Music, Apple Podcasts app, Player.fm. Everywhere you can get podcasts, you can listen to our show. If you're listening on the PC, you can actually simply just go to our website at thehockeynuts.com, listen to us there. And you can actually listen to us at thehockeywriters.com. That is a show or a website that has a lot of great hockey content. It's mostly a blog site, but they also have a page where they list a whole bunch of different hockey-related podcasts as well, and we're in that list.
I think that's an excellent website. I did want to throw in a pitch as well, Wayne. This week, I'm doing my podcast study, and I kept coming across the Binghamton Devils, and I'm like, Binghamton? No, it's been the Albany Devils for a long time. So I went and tried to find out what happened, and lo and behold, the article that I read was from the Hockey Writers, and it was perhaps a year ago, or earlier this year perhaps, but the team had switched, and we probably reported it on our podcast, but the team had switched from Albany to Binghamton, and they're an excellent site. They give you all the details in the articles that are written, and it comes from a wide variety of different locales and authors. So it's a great website, great tool to help the hockey fans who are trying to learn more about the game.
Yeah, and they have the Hockey Writers actually has representatives for almost every team, if not every team. I know they try to maintain a good core of folks writing for their site, and for the most part, they do have representation for every single team. I've considered doing a little writing for them myself, but with the podcast and everything else I got going on, I really just don't have time to do anything right now. But anyway, it's something I might do in the future if I can find some time here and there to do it. But anyway, but you can get our podcast right through their website, as well as a host of other podcasts, many team-specific podcasts listed on that site. So it's a great place to go. All right, well, let's get going on some of the news that's happening over the past week. First and foremost, let's take care of some transactions that have happened over the past week. Defenseman Jason Demers was traded by the Florida Panthers to the Arizona Coyotes for forward Jamie McGinn on Sunday. Demers, who's 29, has 4 years remaining on a 5-year, $22.5 million contract he signed with the Panthers back in July of 2016. In 81 games last season, Demers had 28 points, 9 goals, 19 assists, 53 penalty minutes, and a -14, his worst plus-minus in 8 NHL seasons. I'm sure that's got more to do with his team that he plays for rather than him just being poorly defensive player. He has 171 points in 504 games in his career, playing for the Panthers, Stars, Sharks. Demers and McGinn who were teammates with the Sharks from 2009 through 2012, talked on FaceTime after the trade happened. McGinn told the reporter that wrote this article, he said he was excited that he was coming here so he could play with me. McGinn said, I let him know that I was the one going the other way, so he didn't actually know that part of the trade. McGinn, who's 29, has 2 years remaining on his 3-year, $10 million contract he signed with the Coyotes on July 1st, 2016. And McGinn had 17 points in 72 games for Arizona last year and has 184 points in 522 games during 9 NHL seasons with the Coyotes, Sharks, Sabres, Ducks, and Avalanche. So this seems to be a fairly even up trade as far as I can tell.
That's what I think. Yep.
Essentially what's happening is McGinn is a little bit more of a physical defenseman than Demers. Demers is probably a little bit more of the finesse type defenseman. So I think what you're seeing there is Florida wanted to get a little bit tougher. Arizona wanted someone with a little bit more skating, puck-moving ability. So that's essentially why the trade was made. It's a fairly even-up trade there. So
I agree.
It'd be interesting to see how it happens. But it's been a while since we've had a trade. July 4th, I think, was the last trade we had. So
yes,
this is the first trade since then. So had to mention it. All right, let's get you updated on all of the signings that have happened since we last recorded. And there really hasn't been a whole lot. Of course, right after we recorded, within 24 hours anyway, Marcus Foligno, a 26-year-old left winger, signed with Minnesota on September 14th. He signed a 4-year, $11.5 million contract worth $2.875 per year. And I believe he still had a year left on his current contract. So that was no, he wasn't. He was a restricted free agent. I'm thinking of somebody else. See, there we are getting our facts wrong again.
No.
So last year Demers had 80 games, 13 goals, 10 assists, 23 points for the Sabres last year.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to the Wild for getting him signed back up. And I don't have it in front of me, but do you remember how he ended up on the Wild? It must have been via trade.
Marcus Foligno?
Yeah.
I
don't have the transaction in front of me.
I don't have it. Let me see. I don't have it in front of me, but
he was an unrestricted free agent. That's why.
Yeah,
we're totally getting all this one wrong.
Well, he played with Buffalo all the way back. I got it all the way down to 2011, actually.
Yep.
And he was a member of the Rochester Americans, which, of course, is the Buffalo Sabres farm team. And then this is the only other team he's played for in the NHL.
Yep.
According to the information I have.
Yeah, he's yet to play for Minnesota, but he played with Buffalo all the way through the 16-17 season.
Right. He played for the Sudbury Wolves way back. Very cold in Sudbury. I've been in Sudbury and driven a car late at night there, and it was very cold the night that I did. So I remember that.
No, I looked him up on Cap Friendly. He was a restricted free agent, so he must have been moved from the Sabres to the Wild via trade.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Wild were finally able to sign him. So
that is actually a trade.
Yep.
Okay.
His current contract, he'll be unrestricted when it expires at the end of the 2021 season. Right. That's where I was looking at and saw UFA. I'm like, wait. I was pretty sure he was a restricted free agent, but yes, he was in fact a restricted free agent, and Minnesota has gotten that one signed. All right, now the next one is a big one. David Pastrnak signed, 21-year-old right winger, signed a 6-year, $40 million contract with the Boston Bruins. with an average cap value of 6.666, 6 infinity
Yeah.
per year. That was signed back on the 14th, basically the morning after we last recorded.
Right. And I got up that morning and saw the headline, knew you'd be thrilled. And I told you that was going to happen. Of course, I think you believed it too.
Yeah, yeah,
but
we had.
I think I am shocked at how well the Bruins brass did in signing this. If you take into consideration the Draisaitl deal,
Yep.
they did a great job. And not to say that David Pastrnak was in there with loaded guns, saying this is the way it's going to be.
But
I think he wanted to be a Bruin.
It sure did take a long time to get it done, and there were a lot of Bruins fans panicking out there. I wasn't really one of them. I knew it would eventually happen. It was just frustrating to see how long it was taking and how close to training camp. And he actually got into camp a day or two late. I think he arrived on Saturday, where most of the players reported on Thursday. So, but he got there. He's already been playing games. I believe he's already put some numbers up on the score sheet. It's good to have Pastrnak sign. And the one thing that was surprising to me was the average cap hit at $6.66 million. I was expecting at least $1 million higher than that, given the fact that, like you said, Draisaitl. But the Draisaitl deal wasn't the only one that was discussed as comps when they were doing the negotiation. There were other deals out there that basically put Pastrnak right in that mid-6 range. The difference between Pastrnak and Draisaitl, of course, Draisaitl was drafted much higher in the draft than Pastrnak was. Draisaitl has got, I think, 2 full years under his belt at producing at a fairly decent rate, where Pastrnak really just had his breakout year last year. So that worked against Pastrnak there. But I was very happy with the number, I think. And it's funny because I was seeing responses all over Twitter and whatnot, and folks that are not Bruins fans or anti-Bruins or whatever you want to call them, they were tweeting and messaging, "Oh, the Bruins got robbed on this one. Oh, they're way overpaid for Pastrnak for a guy who's only good 1 year. They're a bunch of idiots. He's had 1 good year and they pay him all this money." But then the Bruins fans are like, "Oh man, Sweeney did a great job at keeping his salary down. That way we'll be able to afford to keep some of the younger players that will have deals coming up here in the next 2 or 3 years." So you saw both sides of it.
Oh, you definitely. And listen, I listened to Black and Gold podcast. In fact, I was listening to it just before the show here, and they were talking about the Draisaitl deal, but also there was another one that factored into the negotiations with Pastrnak. Do you know which one?
I don't remember.
There was another specific deal they mentioned.
Yeah.
That directly related to their negotiations with David Pastrnak. Anyways, it was surprising when I saw that the number was 6.6, and I knew you'd be happy. And listen, I think he wants to be a Boston Bruin. I think that's the bottom line of the whole thing. If he didn't, there wouldn't be talks every day. You'd really be going through the ups and downs of a roller coaster.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be done by now.
Right.
But, and a 6-year deal actually works out nice for the player because he'll be hitting at the end of that 6-year deal, he'll be 27, which he'll be, I believe, an unrestricted free agent at the expiring. Yeah. When this contract expires, he'll have unrestricted status.
Right.
And that's when he'll really cash in. If he produces at the levels that he produced last year, if he continues that every year, or even ticks up a little bit, he'll be. Bruins probably won't be able to afford to keep him at that point. That's the scary part. So Bruins fans, enjoy the next 6 years of Pasta. You may not get him beyond that. We'll go that. Let's just start with the 6 years anyway, and we'll go from there. All right, the next contract we got to talk about. Brian Little, 29-year-old forward, signed with the Winnipeg Jets on the same day that Pasternak did for a 6-year, $31.75 million. That's an annual cap hit of $5.291 per year. Brian Little is another forward. This one almost feels like they were waiting for what Pasternak would get before they ended up signing him, because that was another one that was kind of a long holdout.
Right.
And Little last year had 59 games played, 21 goals, 26 assists, 47 points for the Jets. And he comes in at about $1.5 million below Pasternak. So, but he has many, many years under his belt of NHL experience. So I think that's part of why his contract is a little bit inflated, because he's been pretty much a 45 to 55 point scorer his whole career, which goes all the way back to his first year in the NHL was the 07-08 season.
Right. I remember watching him when he was an Atlanta Thrasher.
Yep.
So he's been with that organization for quite a bit.
Yep.
And he's a good player, very good player. Brian Little's good. Has a good shot. They did the right thing and
got him signed. Yep. All right, next one, Nikita Zadorov, 22-year-old defenseman, signed with the Avalanche, Colorado Avalanche, on the 15th of September. A 2-year, $4.3 million. That's an average cap hit of $2.15 million. Last year, Zadorov had 10 points in 56 games. He's still very young. So, in fact, this current contract that he just signed, he'll still be restricted free agent when this contract is up, since it's such a 2-year deal. This one speaks bridge deal to me.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yep, I think you're right. Although the Avalanche are bleeding on the blue line, and they definitely need defensemen. So.
Yep. Well, they need a lot of things, quite frankly.
Yeah.
All right. Next one, I'm going to move up to Mikko Koivu, 34-year-old center, signed a 2-year, $11 million contract worth an average of 5.5 per year. He signed with the Wild on the 18th. That was yesterday, right?
That was yesterday.
Yep. Mikko Koivu obviously is a NHL veteran, playing many, many years. He's been with the Wild pretty much since the beginning of his career, going all the way back to 2005, 2006. He's been pretty much a 50-point scorer most of his career, 45 to 55 points per year. So, and he's definitely a leader on this Minnesota Wild team. So, sounds like he just didn't want to go anywhere. So they locked him up, and that should take care of him for the rest of his career at this point.
Probably so.
I mean,
unless he signs for less money and signs for the 3-year deal or something like that for less money.
So 34 years old, he can't have too much time left, but
right.
But he elected to stay with the Wild. Probably took 5.5 is nothing to sneeze at, but
yeah.
But it's a good deal for him anyway, for sure.
Yes, it is.
All right. The last contract I have, actually I don't have anymore. There's a couple other players, Jordy Bellerive, Derek Barbio, and Parker Kelly, all signed contracts. They're all 18-year-olds, all signing entry-level deals, all in the $700,000 to $750,000 per season range, all 3-year deals. These are all guys that are going to end up in the minor leagues, so not really worth spending too much time on those.
Mm-hmm.
All right. let's get everybody updated with the PTOs or the professional tryout contracts. And I was looking for a list that had dates on it, and I wasn't able to find it. So bear with me. I'm going to have to go through. I'll just list all the pro tryout contracts for all the teams again. And we'll just blow through this list real quick just to give everybody a heads up on these pro tryout. And, of course, pro tryout contracts, the way they work is it's essentially a tryout. It's a way for a veteran to try out for a team. The team can cut them at any time, and a lot of times they either get signed to a regular contract if the team decides to keep them, or they get released and they can sign anywhere else that they want to go. So as of right now, here's who is playing for what teams. Tyson Strawn's playing for Arizona. Teddy Purcell is in Boston. Cody Guluboff, I can't even say his name, is with Buffalo. Dylan Olson, Rod Pelly, Joel Lowry, Joseph Cramarosa, Daniel Maggio, Tanner Glass, Colby Roback, Oleg Yavenko are all playing in Calgary. I don't know why Calgary signed so many PTOs. Mark Stewart, Cody Franson, Drew Miller, John Mitchell are all in Chicago. I've got a feeling a couple of those will be signed with all the players that they've had to get rid of over the summer. Ben Storm and Jared Cowan are in Colorado. Brett Gallant, Brady Austin, Joe Pendenza are all in Columbus. R.J. Umberger is in Dallas. I didn't know he was still around. He's 35 years old.
Mm-hmm.
P.A. Parenteau and David Booth are both in Detroit. Chris Kelly is in Edmonton. Nikolai Beloff, Harry Zolnierczyk, it's an interesting name to say, and Brandon Perry are all in Florida. Brooks Like, Brandon Prust, Shane Harper, Andrei Lotkinoff, he was here in Carolina not too long ago, and Chris Lee are all in L.A. Ryan Malone and Daniel Winnick are playing in Minnesota. Eric Jelena is in Montreal. Jan Mandat, Jimmy Hayes, Tim Erickson are all in New Jersey. Casey Bailey and Ben Holmstrom are with the Islanders. Andrew Desjardins and Bobby Farnham are with the Rangers. Chris Vandeveld, Brendan Woods, Charles David Beaudoin are all in Ottawa. Maxim Lamarche is in Philadelphia. Jay McClement is in Pittsburgh. Mike McKee and Ty Looney is in St. Louis. Roman Polak is in Toronto. Scotty Upshall and Ryan White are both in Vancouver. Alex Chason, Yuri Yokopaka, and Adam Morrison are all in Washington. Got a feeling a couple of them will be signed. They have openings. And Nikolai Brouillard and Stephen McCauley are in Vegas. So if I didn't mention your team doesn't have any PTOs at this point. All right. Now let's take a quick look at the free agent situation, some of the names that are still out there that are still available. First and foremost, the restricted free agents, according to Cap Friendly, there are only 2 left, unsigned restricted free agents. Josh Anderson, who belongs to Columbus, and Andreas Athanasiou, who belongs to Detroit. And you and I were talking yesterday about the Athanasiou situation, and I think the big problem there is Detroit just doesn't have enough cap space to fit him in. They're currently $3 million over the cap without Athanasiou. Yeah. Now, at the start of the year, they can't do it until the start of the year, what's his name there's a guy that they can put on long-term injury reserve that will free up some of that space. Johan Franzen.
Okay.
He's expected to be put on long-term injured reserve, and he's got a $3.9 million cap hit. So that will put them $900,000 under the cap, but they still haven't signed Athanasiou yet.
Right.
And Athanasiou's not going to sign for $900,000. Right. he's gonna demand more. So in order for Detroit to get Athanasiou signed, they are going to have to do something.
They'll have to cut somebody loose.
Yep, they're going to have to trade some money away somewhere. So that will be interesting to see. So now, as of right now, they can go ahead and sign him. But at the start of because you can be over the cap right now, but at the start of the season, October 4th, you got to be under the cap. That's
right.
That's how it works. So, Athanasiou was making, his cap hit was 628 last year, but that was a entry level deal, and he scored 29 points in 64 games last year. He's gonna be probably at least a $2.5 to $3.5 million player. That's probably where his contract is going to be.
That's right.
So, remains to be seen what Detroit is going to do. As for the Anderson situation in Columbus, not sure what's going on there. Columbus has plenty of cap space. They've got, according to Cap Friendly, they got almost $8 million in cap space, and there's no way Josh Anderson, who also scored 29 points last year, 17 goals in 78 games. He's not going to consume all of that money. So, just not sure what's holding things up there. All right. As far as unrestricted free agents, really the only one that I keep hearing mentioned among the press is Jágr. Where's Jágr going to go? Because Jágr still wants to play, but he's yet to find a landing spot. And I don't know if you've heard anything, but I haven't heard any specific teams discussed.
I haven't either. And if you did, you'd think he was going to play this year. I think Wayne, it might come right down to the last couple of days if he's going to be chosen by an NHL team that needs help.
Yeah.
And if not, I think you're going to see Jaromir Jágr perhaps in another league.
Well, I think what will end up happening with Jágr is he'll end up signing probably not on opening day, but within a day or two after that. Because what the teams right now are focused on is getting all
under
these
the cap.
Getting under the cap, but getting the 60 or so players that are in their camps.
Yeah.
Whittling through all their prospects to make sure they don't want Jágr taking up a spot that could end up being filled by a prospect. So they're taking long, hard looks at all the prospects they already have in their system, and then once they weed through all of that, then they get to a point, well, we got this opening winger spot. Well, Jágr's generally a right winger. So if you got a team that's got a right winger position open and the choice is between a prospect and Jágr, they're going to take a look. Okay, well, can Jágr help us better than this prospect can? And if the answer is yes, you're going to see him sign somewhere. That's how it's going to play out. So, so Jágr is probably not, sweating too bad, but within the first, I would say probably a week into the season, you'll probably see Jágr sign somewhere.
This is going to be interesting.
Yep. But other free agents we have still out there is Brian Gionta, P.A. Parento, Jerome McGinley, Daniel Winnick, Alex Chiasson, Laurie Korpikoski, Cody Franson, Scotty Upshall, Brandon Peary, Dennis Weidman, Ryan White, Chris Vandevelde, Feder Tootin, Chris Kelly, Yuri Hudler, Roman Polak, Joseph Cramarosa, Jay McClement, John Mitchell, and the list goes on from there. And obviously those names sound familiar because I would say over half of those names are playing on PTOs right now. So that list should be pared down. Right now, Cap Friendly has a list of 42 players that are currently unrestricted free agents that are looking for jobs and have yet to sign on with anyone. All right. Let's move on to some of the other stories we've got. Let's look at. Well, there's actually one tryout contract that I wanted to talk about, and it has to do with the China games. I don't know if you've been following it, but Vancouver and LA are both over in China right now, and they play 2 games over there. tomorrow night or Thursday in Shanghai. Who knows when it's going to happen our time. I think it's 7:30 local time, which means tomorrow morning, or is it Friday morning? Tomorrow morning, I think.
Well, they're 12 hours ahead or something?
Yeah, I think they're 12 hours ahead. So I think early tomorrow morning, you're going to see the first of 2 China games in Shanghai, and then I think Saturday, I think, is when they go up to Beijing and play. And anyway, when the Vancouver Canucks got over there, they only brought 2 goalies with them. So what they did is they signed a local kid who plays apparently for the Chinese national team. His name is Zihao Sun, 21-year-old goaltender, signed an amateur tryout contract to play for the Canucks. He signed it on Monday. And basically he's been practicing with the team. They're not expecting him to play unless something happens. But he has signed on to a team. The story's coming out. It's all over NHL.com right now. It's kind of an interesting story. And the funny part of it is, when you look at the picture of him sitting there next to one of the goaltenders that Vancouver has, I think it's Markstrom. The size difference between him and the NHL goalie is he looks like a little kid compared to.
Very noticeable. That's correct. Yeah.
So anyway, it's an interesting story. I hope Vancouver gets him in, kind of does like a George Alves, and puts him in the last minute of a game that's already been decided, and just give him a chance to get his time in the spotlight, because it's a good story, particularly for people of China. It's to see a Chinese kid actually playing for one of the teams. That will really help draw attention to this thing that they're trying to do over there, and that they're trying to promote the game over in China, and nothing will do that better than putting a Chinese player on one of the teams to see how they do. So it's good. It's an interesting story. If you want to get more about it, just go to NHL.com. Pretty much it's all over the news feed, particularly on the Vancouver Canucks website. So, all right, well, let's move on to injuries. The first one I have is St. Louis defenseman Jay Bouwmeester will be reevaluated in 3 weeks because of a fractured left ankle. He was injured during a scrimmage on Sunday. Bouwmeester had 15 points and was +6 and averaged 22-24 of ice time in 81 games last year. His ice time rose to 24-15 during 11 games in the playoffs. In 14 seasons with the Blues, Panthers, Flames, Bouwmeester has 391 points in 1,071 games. Since coming into the NHL in 2002-2003, no defenseman has played more games than him. So a very reliable player is gone down.
Yep.
And that's a big loss for them.
That is.
He's
definitely really no timetable.
No. Well, fractured left ankle, it could take a while. It could be weeks.
Right.
So, yeah, I didn't see a timetable. And then also in that same article that talked about the Jay Bouwmeester, the Blues also announced forward Zach Sanford will have surgery to repair a dislocated left shoulder and will be out 5 to 6 months. He was injured during the first day of training camp. Sanford, who's 22, had 5 points in 13 games with the Blues after being acquired as part of the trade that sent defenseman Kevin Shattenkirk to the Capitals on February 27th. So, Blues taking a couple of injuries right off the bat here.
Right, yeah. Getting things going under the gun.
Yep. All right, Ottawa Senators forward Colin White will miss the start of regular season with a broken left wrist. General manager Pierre Dorian said Tuesday. White is expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks to recover from the injury. He was injured blocking a shot during the third period of a 6-2 preseason win against the Toronto Maple Leafs on Monday. The number 21 pick in the 2015 NHL draft had an opportunity to start the season in the NHL with center Derek Brassard recovering from shoulder surgery on June 6th. So Ottawa's got yet another one that's in injury trouble already. So Brassard's out, White's out, Carlson's out.
Yep.
So Ottawa's struggling right off the bat here with injuries. It's a chance for the young kids to play, I guess.
It is. But I'm telling you, Ottawa without Erik Karlsson is like chocolate without sugar. You know.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yep, that's pretty much the gist of it.
Yep.
All right, Anaheim Ducks center Ryan Kessler is out indefinitely after having off-season hip surgery. As of right now, there's no timetable whatsoever. General manager Bob Murray told the Ducks website on Friday he couldn't skate during the second half of the season. No push-off on his right leg. He has to rebuild his glutes and quads. That's what we're in the process of doing right now. I'm hopeful to have him back before Christmas, but that's all I'm going to say right now. Kessler, who's 33, had surgery in Colorado on June 8th to remove several pieces of floating hip capsule, an ailment that limited his mobility and goal scoring during the second half of last season. He had 58 points in 82 games last year and had 8 points in 17 playoff games. The Ducks advanced to the Western Conference Final before losing to the Predators in 6 games. The Ducks will also begin the season without defensemen Sami Vatanen and Hampus Lindholm, who each had off-season surgery to fix torn labrum. Murray said he's hopeful they will be able to return by November 1. So, again, injury issues for Anaheim.
And those are big ones.
All
Every
three
one
of
of
them.
those
Yep.
is a major injury.
Yep.
Sami Vatanen, Hampus Lindholm, you're talking about one of the best defensive teams in the NHL. A case could be made the best. And both of those guys are desperately needed by that team.
Yeah, it looks like those two guys will be back quick. But Kessler, I guess that explains why Kessler wasn't producing.
Yeah.
He wasn't. He was playing hurt. That
Right.
had to have been painful playing like that.
I'm sure.
So, well, that was all the injuries I had. Other than there's a bunch of little, bumps and bruises here and there. A lot of day-to-day stuff that you're going to have at the beginning of the season. But as far as major injuries, those are the only ones I was able to find.
That's right.
All right, let's move on to some of the other stories. First one, forwards Brady Tkachuk and Oliver Wahlstrom, each projected first-round picks in the 2018 NHL Draft, will lead opposing teams at the CCM/USA Hockey All-American Prospects Game at KeyBank Center on Thursday. The 6th annual game features 42 of the top U.S.-born players chosen by USA Hockey in conjunction with NHL Central Scouting. The game has an interesting mix of draft-eligible prospects from all levels of hockey and from all areas of the country, said Dan Marr, director of NHL Central Scouting. These players bring quite a cross-section of talent, and they have been identified at this early stage of the season as some of the top prospects from the United States. It will give NHL scouts a good sneak preview of the 2018 NHL Draft. Tkachuk, who's 6'2", 194 pounds, who will play for Team Brian Leach, is a freshman at BU and is considered, that's Boston University for those of you who don't know college hockey, and is considered a candidate to be the top 5 pick. He had 54 points in 61 games for the U.S. National Development Program under-18 team last year. He's the son of U.S. Hockey Hall of Famer Keith Tkachuk and brother of Calgary Flames forward Matthew Tkachuk. Oliver Wahlstrom will lead Team Chris Chelios. He'll play this season for the U.S. National Development Program under-18 team after he had 25 points in 43 games for the U-17 National Development Program and 15 points in 20 games for the National Development Program U-18 team last season. He's committed to play at Harvard University and will begin his career there in 2018-19. And just a note on Wahlstrom, and I'm sure I've talked about it before in the podcast, he's known most for his viral YouTube video that came out when he was a 9-year-old kid doing some fancy breakaway moves in a little shootout-style tournament that he played in when he played for the Portland Junior Pirates in Maine. And I included a link to that YouTube video if you haven't already seen it. If you're a hockey fan or been a hockey fan for a while, you've probably already seen the video. But he had some pretty fancy face-off move there. Or not face-off, a shootout move when he was a 9-year-old kid. And another personal note on that I also included the rosters for both teams with all the names of all the players that are playing. And, like they said, they are come from all over the country. But one of the players that we're going to see in that game, and I wish the game was televised, I was looking to see if there would be TV or even streaming coverage, and I haven't been able to find anything. Maybe Thursday night I can take a look and see. But Tyler Weiss, a local kid from this area, we've talked about him before. He's playing for the USA National Development Program U18 team. He's a Boston University commit. I don't think he goes to school there until either next season or the season after. I'm not exactly sure when he's going to start there. But Tyler Weiss, I referee with his dad, and so I know the family. I wouldn't say we're close friends, but I know him personally anyway. And but they, it's a good kid, and he's also going to be playing in that game. He'll be on Team Chris Chelios. So I'll be looking to try to get the stream anyway of that, so I can watch that. So because I'll be watching Tyler's career very closely, knowing I have a personal connection to the family there. All right. I got a article in the NHL.com that basically lists all of the key dates coming up. And when I was looking through this list, I'm like, man, these are all trips that I wish we could take.
Yeah.
Of course, the 21st and 23rd, you have the NHL China games. And that's not one of the ones. That's not one of the trips I want to take. But that's a highlight on their schedule. September 24th is the Kraft Hockeyville USA game, which is being played at UPMC Lemieux Sports Complex in Cranberry, PA. Of course, hosted by the Penguins. And then on September 25th, a day later, the Kraft Hockeyville Canada game between the Senators and the Devils is going to be in O'Leary, PEI, Prince Edward Island. So 2 games that basically it's a contest that they find one arena in each country that has what they call the most passionate fans, and they hold a preseason game at a small local arena for the fans of that area. So the Blues and Penguins will be playing in Cranberry, PA, and the Senators Devils will be playing in O'Leary, Prince Edward Island. October 4th is obviously opening night of the regular season. November 10th and 11th is the 2017 SAP NHL Global Series, which has Colorado against Ottawa, and that game takes place in Stockholm, Sweden at Ericsson Globe Arena. So that'll be a good day or those 2 games actually, will be a good time to watch some morning hockey because those games should be on here in the U.S. in the morning, where those games are being played in Sweden. November 10th through the 13th is the Hall of Fame induction celebration. And, of course, the newest inductees, Dave Andrechuk, Danielle Goyette, Paul Correa, Mark Recchi, Timo Solani, Claire Drake, and Jeremy Jacobs will all be inducted during that celebration. December 16th, we have this 2017 Scotiabank NHL 100 Classic between the Canadiens and Senators taking place at Lansdowne Park in Ottawa, Ontario. And that's a soccer/Canadian football stadium that they're going to be playing there. January 1, of course, is the Bridgestone NHL Winter Classic. This the annual outdoor game on New Year's Day. That one is against the Rangers and the Sabres, taking place at Citi Field in New York City. That's the home of the New York Mets in baseball. And that obviously is one of the ones that I would love to go to. And I know you would too.
Oh, God. I looked at ticket prices, Wayne.
Oh, God.
On SeatGeek.
Yep.
$265.
Per
minimum.
seat?
Per seat.
One seat.
$265.
Wow.
I don't know about you, but,
That's the problem with New York. The city is so damn big that the laws of supply and demand are still are going to run wild with that.
Yep.
Wow.
A lot of money.
Yep. On January 7th, 2018 is the last day of the Hockey Hall of Fame's limited time NHL Centennial exhibit. And that's going to, of course, take place in Toronto. That is I think that's the stuff that that we went to back in April there.
That's right.
Yeah. January 27th, 2018 is NHL All-Star Weekend, which takes place at Amalie Arena in Tampa Bay. I'd love to go to that.
That would be fun.
That would be a good way to get out of town. February 26th is the NHL trade deadline. March 3rd, Coors Light NHL Stadium Series game. Toronto Maple Leafs at Washington Capitals, taking place at the U.S. Naval Academy, Annapolis, Maryland.
That would be a lot of fun, Wayne.
That would be a lot of fun to go to because it's so close to us. It's like a 5-hour drive from where we are.
That's right.
But the question is it open to the general public? That may only be open to servicemen.
Yeah.
The audience may only be servicemen at that game. Because I think it's just being played. No, it is being played at the football stadium. Because I know that Navy has a hockey team too. So, and it's a small arena. It's not a big, but it's a stadium series game, so they'll be playing at the football stadium. Be curious. Maybe we should look into that. See if tickets will be available to the public, or if it's going to be strictly military people at that game.
The Navy hockey team, Division III?
Well, they bounce back and forth. I don't believe they're Division I now, but they have been in the past. Okay. So, yeah, they would be Division II, Division III, somewhere in that neighborhood, yeah. All right, April 11th, 2018 is the opening day of the playoffs. And June 22nd, 23rd, 2018 is the NHL draft, which takes place in Dallas. And again, I'd love to go to that. That would be fun. Some dates that scream out to me that are missing from this list are the Olympic dates. Obviously, right. NHL doesn't care about that.
No, they don't. But we do. And we will be covering it here on the Hockey Nuts podcast. Do not miss it.
We will. We will be covering it because we are not bound to cover just NHL. That is true.
That's right. We're just two fans, and we will bring that news and action to you.
Yep, certainly will. All right. Well, speaking of the Olympics, Alexander Ovechkin released a statement regarding the Olympics, and I wanted to read the whole thing because
quite an article here.
Because it really touches at the heart of the way he's thinking, and probably some of the other players that don't want to say anything, but he's speaking for them too. All right, here's his words. This is an article that he himself wrote, and I can tell that he wrote it because you can almost sense the Russian accent in this article.
Yep.
And I'll read it exactly as written. He said, "I wanted to make this statement so that my words are clear and nobody misunderstands what I'm saying. The Olympics are in my blood, and everybody knows how much I love my country. Ever since I was a kid and all the time I've played in the NHL, NHL players have played in the Olympic Games. We never have to make a choice between our team and our country my whole career. I love the Capitals and my teammates here as much as I love my country, and I know all the other NHL players feel the same for their teams. We should not have to be in the position to make this choice. My mom was a 2-time Olympic champion, and when I start to play hockey, I dream that if I have chance to play for my country, I will do it every time they ask me. Ever since I was a teenager, I've played for the Junior Russia national team whenever they ask me to. Ever since I was good enough to play on the men's national team, whenever they ask me, I play. When they asked me to be part of the Olympics closing ceremony in Vancouver before Sochi, get the Olympic Games, I said, okay, let's do it. When they asked me to be ambassador for Sochi Olympic Games, I did it. When they asked me to go to Greece and be first Russian to carry Olympic flame on the way to Sochi, I do it. When they asked me to play in World Cup, I do it. I'm proud that we win on junior team and for the national team in World Championships, but we do not win the most important thing yet, Olympic gold medal. I see the news this week, and I'm very disappointed that IOC, IIHF, and NHL put me and all NHL players in this position when some of the best players in the world do not have chance to play in the Olympic Games. This is not just about me, but all the NHL players who want to play and have a chance to win gold for their country. Our countries are now not allowed to ask us to play in the Olympics. Me, my teammates, and all players who want to go all lose. So do all the fans of hockey with this decision that we're not allowed to be invited. NHL players in the Olympics is good for hockey and good for Olympics. It sucks that we will not be there to play. I said every time I was asked since Olympics that nobody is going to tell me that I can't play because my country was going to be allowed to ask me. Now the IIHF and NHL say my country is not allowed to ask anybody in the NHL to play, and there's nothing to talk about anymore. I talked to Ted about this last year, and he support me and have my back, and I understand what I want to do if I was allowed to be asked to go. Me, my family, thank him for his support. There is nothing like Olympic Games. It is still my dream to win an Olympic gold medal for my country. I hope things will change and all of us will have a chance to go again in 2022. What's most important to remember is kids have lots of dreams. My focus, as it always is this time of year, is on my other dream as a kid to try to win the Stanley Cup. I am excited. Training camp has started in Washington, and the time for talking is done. We just have to go out and do it, and I will try my hardest to help my teammates win like I do every year since I came to the NHL. So that's a statement from Ovechkin. Obviously, he's extremely disappointed that he's not going to get to play for his country.
I will applaud because I really respect the heck out of Alexander Ovechkin. And, I mean, that's heart and determination and all of his talent and his passion rolled into one. And you don't see that kind of passion in every Russian player that comes over here to play. But you've always seen it in Alexander Ovechkin. And what a stand-up guy. I mean, he wants so desperately to play for his country. And you can't have anything but respect and admiration for him.
Yeah, and I am still very confident that the NHL ultimately will decide to go to 2022 games because they're in China, are they not?
That's right.
They just started this whole Chinese hockey program.
Right.
They're doing these China games to try to grow the game in China. And what better way to grow the game in China than to bring the Olympic tournament there?
Yes, that's so true.
Now, the only sucky part for us as fans is whether they're in China or South Korea playing hockey. If they're in that part of the world playing an international hockey tournament, you know what time the games would be on when live?
Yeah.
It's going to happen in the middle of the night because, that part of China is 12 hours ahead of us. So a 1 p.m. game is going to start at 1 a.m. here. And a 3 p.m. game is going to start at 3 a.m. and so on. 7 p.m. is going to start at 7 a.m. So the night games we'll be able to watch if you get up in the morning and go in late to work. But but that's the downside of having the Olympics being so far away. It's on literally the other side of the world. So it would be hard to watch the games live anyway for us. And of course, with the social media and how fast information flies these days, it would be almost impossible to DVR the game and still be able to watch the game not knowing the outcome. You'd have to completely ignore the internet, everything.
Yeah.
You'd have to go out of your way to try to do that. Now, it's not that difficult for us to do down here in North Carolina because the local radio doesn't talk about hockey hardly ever. Which is why we have this podcast because, there's no hockey talk around here. So
right.
we're creating it. Point being, the players, again, should be allowed to go. Obviously, it's not going to happen this year because the NHL didn't build in a break to their schedule and they've made an agreement with the IOC that they're not going to allow that the countries are not going to ask the players to go play for them if they play in the NHL. So, but I guarantee you, and you can mark my words now, NHL players will be in China in 4 years.
In China, they will definitely be there.
Yep.
You will see the Russian team really do well this time in Pyongyang.
Well, yeah, because the KHL is
Because
actually going
nobody
to
can stop them. Yeah.
yeah, the KHL is going to stop their season, and the KHL is going to send their best players
Right.
to represent Russia. That's a good opportunity for those players
Absolutely.
to get some exposure outside the country. And you may see, once the KHL season is done, you may see the NHL sign one or two of those guys.
Right. You'll see Sergei Mozyakin, Igor Shestyorkin. You'll see Pavel Datsuk probably. You'll see some very, very good talent on that Russian team.
Yep. And Kovalchuk will play for them.
Kovalchuk is going to play, absolutely.
Yep. So yeah, you're going to see a good Russian team. You're going to see some names and faces that you haven't seen before, and probably going to be a lot of young prospects. It'll be kind of like the way it was before the NHL players started going. The Americans will send a bunch of young college-aged, 18 to 24-year-old young kids. And they're going to use the Olympics to make a name for themselves and really go get a showing. And what we will see, that I can guarantee, is you're going to see a few of the players that are playing for Canada, USA, Sweden, Finland, Russia, Czech. You're going to see a few players signed at the end of the Olympic Games. Once that tournament is over, you're going to see a few of those players come over to the States and play in the NHL.
Yep.
Remember... was it 92 or 94? The goalie, Ray LeBlanc, stole the show. He stole the show there he stood on his head for several games there, and he essentially got an NHL contract out of that deal. I think he ended up in New Jersey?
Oh God, I know the name. It rings a bell. I couldn't tell you where he played.
I don't remember where he ended up, but he basically played his way into an NHL contract.
Right. I'm going to tell you right now, Igor Shestyorkin is New York Rangers property. If he has a big tournament, they win gold, you better believe they'll be on the telephone.
Yeah, I'm pulling him up. He signed with the Blackhawks. He was the star of the '92 U.S. Olympic team.
Yeah.
So, and he ended up only playing one game in the NHL.
Yeah.
And I remember that game. It was right after the tournament ended. He actually only allowed one goal, got a win in that game, made 21 saves, but he didn't end up playing in the NHL after that.
Andrei Markov, another name comes to mind. He is going to be on that Russian team.
Because he went over there. He went over there to play in the KHL. So.
Yep.
So yeah. Anyway, so that's the deal with the Olympics. Should be it's just extra hockey for us to cover.
That's right.
Which is a good thing. All right. Well, let's move on to our season previews because there's a lot to do there.
There is.
This week we're doing the Metropolitan Division. And as always, we're going to do them in alphabetical order. So the first team we need to get to in the Metro is the Carolina Hurricanes. That is our local team here. Neither one of us are a fan of the team, but we follow them closely just because they are the local team and what little coverage the local stations give around here to hockey, it's pretty much exclusively Hurricanes. So last season, the Hurricanes finished 36, 31, and 15 for a total of 87 points. Finished just out of the playoffs. They were only a few points out. They're an up-and-coming team, and a lot of the experts, from what I've seen, they're kind of the sexy pick this year of a team that has not been making the playoffs, as a team that will make the playoffs where they hadn't been previously. As far as players leaving, the Hurricanes have Eddie Lack, Ryan Murphy, and Matt Tennyson are no longer with the team. But they've brought in, through trades and other signings, Marcus Kruger, Josh Joris, Justin Williams, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, Scott Darling, and Jeremy Smith. Just that group of players alone Never mind talking about their prospects. That group of players alone vastly improves this team.
Yeah.
And this is a team that actually the last 2 years have not missed the playoffs by that much.
That's right. And the last 2 years have done the very same thing as in the offseason. They brought in a great, last year it was Teuvo Teravainen. You go right down the list of the players they brought in last year. Very good players that have turned the tides on this team.
Yep. Yeah, and they got a very strong core of prospects too. They've got expected to make the team this year. They've got Hayden Fleury, who was the 7th overall pick in 2014. They've got I thought that Julien Gauthier, as well as he's been playing in camp and in the rookie camp earlier this summer, would make the team. Hockey News seems to think that he's not going to make the team till next year. But Julien Gauthier is a player that you're going to want to watch out for with this team. He's going to be kind of a I like to say like a Keith Tkachuk or a Cam Neely style player. He's going to be a big, strong, power forward type player for Carolina. Right. Hayden Fleury, of course, is a defenseman. They've got coming up through. They also have Jake Bean, which I thought might, based on, he played very well during the summer camp and has played very well thus far in training camp. I thought he might have a chance to make the team. Hockey News thinks he's a year away. But he's another defenseman that the Hurricanes have. He was drafted 13th overall in the 2016 NHL draft, and he's another top prospect for them.
Right.
And then, of course, you add that to your Sebastian Ahos, who will be coming off his nice rookie season that he had. He should do pretty well again. You mentioned Teravainen, who's another young star. Established guys like Justin Falk. You've got Noah Hannafin, who will take another step toward getting better. He was basically on the team right from his 18-year-old, right out of being drafted. He went straight to the NHL.
Right.
Jacob Slavin, who's been a surprise, really good player for them.
Right.
Probably one of their better defensemen. The defense core that they have is very, very strong.
Yes.
With Falk, Slavin, Fleury, you've got Hannafin, Pesce, another defenseman they got, Dahlback,
Trevor Van Riemsdyk.
I mean, the defense core here in Carolina has a potential to be one of the best in the league.
Yep.
They made the big change at goaltender by letting Lack go and then bringing in Scott Darling, who they think deserves a shot at being a starter. So one of the questions I have for Carolina is, whether or not Carolina, if they can, if Darling is ready to be a full-time starter in the league. That remains to be seen. We'll find out. But they've got Cam Ward backing them up, so that's not too bad of a duo right there. If Darling plays as well as he did with Chicago, and can maintain that through a 60-game season,
right.
60 games played, and then you've got Cam Ward, who's actually proven to play better when he gets less work.
Right.
So you'll see his numbers improve if they can keep him to 25 or 30 or less. Carolina will be just fine in net. And then up front, you've got Skinner, Stahl, Williams, projected to be the first line there. You've got Aho, Victor Rask, and Teravainen. A pretty decent second line there. Third line, Nordstrom, Derek Ryan, Elias Lindholm. And then you got a whole host of other prospects and veterans mixing up to fill up the bottom of the roster, including Marcus Kruger and Josh Joris, who are the newcomers coming in there.
Right. Right. I see it as this team is very intriguing. They've shored up the problems that they had, and I'm picking them to make the playoffs, Wayne. In the projected finish, I have the Carolina Hurricanes making the playoffs this year. I picked them. So,
and I'm going to go right along with you there. I think they've finally gotten over the hump, and I think this is the year that they finally crack the playoffs. And if they can keep this group together, they're going to be a good team for years to come.
Yeah. Yeah, they will.
They seem to be a year or two behind the Edmonton Oilers in the rebuilding stage. Of course, they don't have a Connor McDavid, but
That's right.
but they've still got a very nice core of young players.
They can throw Skinner, Aho, and heck, even an aging Justin Williams and do just fine.
Yeah, and of course they're in the process of possibly naming their captain, and sounds like they are going to name a captain this year, and there's a lot of speculation who that will be. And my personal belief is they're going to go ahead and name Justin Williams the captain. Mm-hmm. But that also remains to be seen because he is there for the next 2 years. So, and then by the time he gets done playing, 2 years from now, one of these young kids will be ready to take the C. That's why I think that's going to happen that way. But Carolina has plenty of cap space too, so if they want to make more moves, they can.
Right.
I wouldn't mind seeing a Matt Duchene
Yeah.
to
Wouldn't
Carolina.
Surprise me.
Not that
Wouldn't
I've
surprise me.
seen in any way that's going to happen, but it'd be,
Yeah.
it's no secret that Matt Duchene's being shopped around, and it'd be nice to see him come to Carolina. They got the room for him.
Yeah.
In his $6+ million salary. So, all right, let's move on to Columbus.
Yes.
Columbus last year had a great year. They finished 50, 24, and 8 for 108 points. Easily made the playoffs. They're being picked by the Hockey News to finish third in the Metro. As far as players are concerned, newcomers, you've got Artemi Panarin, Jordan Schroeder, Cameron Gauntz, Andre Benoit, and back in goal, Matisse Kivlenitsk. I can't say his name. And then players that have left, Brandon Saad, Sam Gagne, Scott Hartnell, William Karlsson, Kyle Quincy, Anton Forsberg, and David Clarkson.
Right.
To me, in terms of the players coming and going, I think Columbus has gotten weaker. I mean, yeah, Panarin's a nice ad, but you're losing Saad, you're losing Hartnell, you're losing some veteran presence there.
Right. Yeah, Hartnell's going to be sorely missed. I think, Wayne, I talked to you about this yesterday over lunch, and you're looking at this Columbus Blue Jacket team. I think they're going to fight all year with Carolina for a playoff spot. But the one thing that's undeniable about this team last year is they got into the playoffs because they won 16 games in a row. The second longest winning streak ever in NHL history. That's 32 points staring you in the face. And that's what put them in the playoffs. There's no question about it. You can talk to anybody, even if they're a marginal NHL fan. That's what put them in the playoffs. That's not going to happen this year. I can go out on a limb.
Well, you're going out there, aren't you?
I don't even think they'll win 10 games in a row this year. So my thinking on it was, if you take last year's team and you take away that 16-game win streak and say they go 11-5, that's 10 less points.
Yep.
And that really would have put them in a dogfight to get in the playoffs last year. So there's no question they have some great players. They had a great season. They should have a lot of confidence. But winning 16 games in a row again isn't going to happen. So Columbus is going to have to come up with those points to propel them into the playoffs. Not saying they can't, but things are different this year than they were last year. Yep. And I think the Carolina Hurricanes are a much improved team, and I think they're going to make it hard for them.
Yeah, I would definitely agree to that. I mean, because the way I see the Metro, Metro's just going to be a tough conference. It's going to be a dogfight for just about everybody.
Right.
Yeah, they finished with 108 points, but like you said, they did it on the backs of that long winning streak that they had, and you're just not going to see that repeated.
Right.
If you see a streak like that again, it'll just be another team. Odds are, it's just not
Right.
going to be. You're not going to see Columbus banging off another 15, 16 games in a row.
Right.
So yeah, that alone will help bring them back to earth. So, and then when you put them in the league with the in a division with the Rangers, Penguins, and Capitals,
Yeah.
that's some tough competition right there.
That's
and
right.
then Carolina getting better, and yeah, I think you're right. I think Columbus is in for the fight of their lives. Now they do have plenty of talent to make the playoffs. It's absolutely good enough. I mean, they got Panarin up front. They've got Wenberg, Atkinson, Dubinsky, Bjorkstrand, Foligno. Those are all nice players to have.
Right.
Milano, Jenner, Anderson, if they can get him signed. Their defense is even better. Seth Jones, Werenski, Gabriel Carlson, Marcus Nidavara, who's a relatively newcomer, Scott Harrington, Jack Johnson. I mean, they've got David Savard. I mean, they've got a very deep defense,
Right.
for sure. And that Bobrovsky is a question mark. He struggled in the playoffs last year.
He did.
Will the and it seems to me it was largely mental. So will that continue to be a problem for them?
Right.
Where Bobrovsky either if he breaks down mentally in the regular season, and that 16 game winning streak turns into a 8 or 9 game losing streak,
Right.
because his head's not on straight.
Right.
Because the behind Bobrovsky they've got Korpisalo and a relatively new goalie core behind him. So you could see another 98, 102 points come out of Columbus this year very
Right.
easily, but you could very easily see 82 points come out of them.
Right.
If things don't fall into place for them. So all the experts seem to be giving them, practically giving them a playoff spot. You and I think otherwise. We think that they're going to be closer to a 6, 7, 8 seed,
Right.
and be fighting for their lives for that 4th or 5th spot coming out of the
Right.
Metro. So.
That's right.
So, yeah, Columbus is one of those wait-and-see kind of teams. We'll have to watch and see what happens with them.
That's right.
Okay, let's move on to New Jersey. New Jersey last year finished with a dismal 28, 40, and 14 record with 70 points. Easily finished among the bottom. I think they were the bottom team in the East.
Right.
Finishing 27th overall in the league. They have made a lot of changes over the summer, and I think they've very quietly assembled a very good team. The players leaving are Mike Camilleri, John Merrill, Devontae Smith-Pelly, and Bo Bennett. Players coming in, Nico Hischier, who's their top overall pick that they got in the draft this spring, and it looks like he's going to make the team.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Brian Boyle is technically a newcomer, but we've got some news about him that may lead question of his future with the team. Marcus Johansson's a nice add for them. Mirko Mueller, Brian Strait, and Yaroslav Deblenko are all newcomers coming in. And I think the biggest add here is obviously Nico Hischier. But the question is with him is, will he be ready for NHL NHL quality competition?
Right. Remains to be seen. If you listen to the people, the pundits and the people in the know, this is not a generational type talent draft guy, number one pick. But that doesn't mean anything. He's on a team that definitely needs his help because they got a lot of holes.
Yep.
So he may step in there and do very, very well. And you just have to wait and see how he adjusts to the NHL play.
Yep. I don't by any means think New Jersey is going to be a playoff team this year.
No.
They're gonna be improved, but they're not gonna be improved enough to make the leap all the way up to a playoff spot. Because remains to be seen. You're not going to see Hershier come out and score 80 points like you saw like a Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews. Like you said, they're not. He's not expected to be a generational talent, but
Right.
you could expect 50 to 60 points out of him
Right.
if he is what they say he is. Now, one big issue with New Jersey too is the injury to Travis Zajac.
Right.
Hockey News didn't talk about it because their magazine came out before Zajac got hurt, but he got hurt, and he's got a torn left pectoral muscle, which is going to leave him out for quite a while, and that's
Right.
he's was expected to be their number one center. So with that said, they may end up putting Hershier in that spot to replace him.
Right.
So until Zajac gets back, you're not going to see a big improvement offensively with them. But it'll be fun to watch to see Taylor Hall and Hershier get together, two former number one overall picks, to see what they can do on the ice.
Right.
But beyond that, there's really not a whole lot of high-end talent with this New Jersey Devils team.
Right.
There's a lot of decent pieces, but not, we're not going to see them filling up the All-Star roster. We'll put it that way. So
That's true.
And one of the other questions I had, too, was Corey Schneider obviously didn't have a very good season last year. Can he get back to his former self? Now, a lot of that is the team in front of him. So that remains to be seen whether he can get back to his former status as one of the better goalies in the league.
Right.
So I don't know what else there is to say about New Jersey other than, as far as prospects are concerned, obviously Hershier is expected to make the team. They're expecting Mirko Mueller to make the team. He's a defenseman. He's been in Albany the past couple of seasons, so they're obviously saying that he's going to be ready to step in. John Quenneville is another forward coming up through. He's been in the American Hockey League the last season or two. And that's pretty much it for guys that they expect to make the team this year.
Right.
And they've got Hershier as the top prospect in the system. So they'll and all the articles I've read about him is they're expecting him to make the team right away.
I think he'll make the team. Yep.
Only because, if he were coming into like the Blackhawks, he might not make the team, but
Yeah.
but it's the
That's
Devils. Right. So they'll go through the growing pains with that young team. All right. Let's move on to the Islanders.
Yes.
Islanders finished 41, 29, and 12 last year for a total of 94 points, finished just outside the playoff bubble. They made the playoffs the year before that. So or the last 2 years, I think, before that they made the playoffs.
That's right.
A big thing standing over the Islanders that I see is their arena issue. And we'll talk about that in a minute in depth. But as far as players are concerned, Travis Hamonic, Ryan Strome, Mikhail Gravoski, and Jean-Francois Berube are all gone. And they've been replaced by Jordan Eberle. And, of course, Eberle came in when through a trade for Ryan Strome with the Edmonton Oilers. And Sebastian Aho. And that's not the Sebastian Aho that plays in Carolina.
That's right.
This is a new Sebastian Aho. A young defenseman prospect that they've got. And in net, they've got another goalie coming in that could challenge Thomas Greiss and Yaroslav Halak for playing time. Kristers Gudlevskis is also expected to get some playing time this year.
Right.
So this Islanders team, like I said, is got the arena issue hanging over their head. Nobody knows. They don't seem to have a solution there.
Right.
They played a preseason game the other night at the old Nassau Coliseum. I don't know why they don't just go back there. I guess I don't know the details of what's going on there.
Right.
Because it's obvious that the arena they're in now is not it's not a hockey arena. It was built for basketball. It's got weird angles because they're
Yep.
basically shoehorning a hockey rink into that arena at the Barclays Center. The Barclays Center. So the Devils need to find a solution soon for their arena issues. And
Right.
I don't know why Nassau Coliseum is such a bad place. I know it's old, but they just did some renovations to it.
Right.
Couldn't they continue to work on renovations to bring it up to NHL standards? I guess I don't understand.
I don't understand that either. I think it has to do with zoning issues and stuff, New York red tape. But I know that the and Charles Wong doesn't own the team now. He's gone.
Right.
But he was having to bankroll that team each year, millions of dollars, because I think Nassau Coliseum only seats 8 or 9,000 people. So it doesn't fit the mold of the NHL arena that you and I know.
Okay.
And I think
I
that's
thought it
the
seated more
major
than that.
reason.
Yeah.
That's the main. Maybe it's 10,000, but it's not many. It's not as much as Winnipeg's arena. They do not have that seating capacity.
Winnipeg's around 14
Right.
and change. Okay.
So that's why they're not. But now you make a good point. I don't understand why they don't just raise the roof on Nassau Coliseum and expand it up to a 16 or 17,000 seat arena. I don't understand why they don't do that. But obviously, I think it has to do with zoning issues and permits and red tape that, to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure about that, but I believe that's the reasons why they have not expanded that Coliseum. I personally, that's where they should have the games. If you ever watch a game there, it's deafening, the roar, and the fans love going there. So
Yeah. Actually, I just looked it up, and before closing for renovations in 2015, the Coliseum seated 16,170 for hockey.
oh, I'm wrong.
Yep. Which is still small for today's standards. NHL wants 17 or more.
Right.
Yeah. But the renovations also resulted in drastically reduced capacities. It now can only seat 13,000 for hockey.
Okay.
So whatever renovations they did, they took away seating.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I could have sworn it was less than that, but I didn't know they had renovations in 15. So, and I think in 15, if I'm not mistaken, they were playing at the Barclays Center anyways, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I'm looking at a picture of the inside of the Nassau Coliseum. There's no upper deck. There's basically a mezzanine level, so you got the lower bowl and then a mezzanine, which is basically where all the fans walk around, and then there's stairs to go up to the upper level of seating. So there's no true upper and lower bowl. It's just one continuous bowl with about halfway up there's a mezzanine where all the fans walk. And then the sky boxes or the luxury boxes are way up near the roof. Yes, it's not an arena to NHL standards, but you would think it's better than what they got right now.
Right.
At least they could use that until they can get a new arena built. And I know they're having trouble. They tried for years and years and years to get a new arena built, and I knew, like you said, red tape all but prevented it.
Right.
Which is why they ended up moving to the Barclays Center anyway. But now you're seeing, look, if the Islanders can't find a place to play in New York, and I would doubt that the Rangers are going to give them time at Madison Square Garden with all the other
Right.
events that go on at the Garden besides hockey and
Right.
Knicks basketball. There's just no room for the Islanders in that building. So with the Islanders, if they can't get an arena built that is built for hockey, I would not be surprised if that team leaves that area.
Right.
And quite frankly, do they really need 3 teams in the New York City area? You got the Devils and Rangers. Isn't that enough?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the Islanders, I get it. The Islanders have been there forever. They got the 4 Stanley Cups. They got the history, the tradition, yada yada yada. They got all that. But is it time? You've got cities in this country and Canada. You got Quebec. You've got Kansas City. You got Houston. You got Seattle. All screaming they want a team, and yet you've got 3 teams in New York City.
Yeah.
Couldn't they spare one?
Yeah. Yep.
And it won't be the Rangers. I can tell you that. They're not going anywhere.
Right.
They're entrenched for life in that city.
Right.
And the Devils just built a brand new arena for themselves a few years ago, so it won't be them leaving town. I think it's the Islanders that are the odd man out in this situation.
Right.
Sad to say for their fans, but I think the time has come to take a look at that, and maybe they already are, and we don't know about it yet. But and I think that's part of the problem with the Islanders building a contending team. You've got John Tavares there, who's going to be up for a contract either at the end of this season or at the end of next season. I can't remember which. And he's hesitant right now of signing a new contract because he doesn't know what the arena situation is. He doesn't want to play for a team that's going to be completely in limbo like that.
Right, and I believe it is the end of this season, Wayne.
That his contract is up
for his contract. Yeah. So, you make a good point. I think you're right. This is another team that could go to Quebec City,
or Seattle,
Seattle.
Those two,
That's right.
Those two cities are consistently named as potential cities for a future NHL team.
Yep.
And then you've also heard Kansas City and Houston from time to time as possible locations. Although 2 teams in Texas, I don't know about that, but
right.
But yeah, I mean, they got to do something with the Islanders because it's a mess.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, they're still fielding a fairly decent team. It's a team good enough to make the playoffs some years, not others. And right now, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team just because. Well, if they were in the Northeast or what is it, the Atlantic Division, they probably would have a good chance at making the playoffs, but not in the Metro. I don't see them as a playoff team this year.
It's going to be so competitive. I just don't see it.
Yep.
Is Tavares going to start the season, or is he still hurt?
I hadn't heard that he was.
Because I know he had surgery immediately after the off season, and I didn't hear that he was back playing yet, but he might be.
Let's see. There's a story out today in Newsday that's talking about the ice at the Barclays Center being horrible. Yeah, he got he obviously got that hamstring injury March 31st that they're kind of attributing to the poor ice. No, he is going to be playing in a preseason game. So
okay, good.
So he should be back for the start of the season.
Okay.
All right. Let's move to the next team, the New York Rangers.
New York Rangers.
They finished 48, 28, and 6 with 102 points last year. Made the playoffs fairly easily last year. They have, in terms of players coming and going, players that are no longer with the team: Derek Stepan, Ani Rana, Dan Girardi, Oscar Lindberg, Brandon Perry, Kevin Klein, Adam Clendening. Players coming in: David Desharnais, Kevin Shattenkirk, Anthony D'Angelo, Alexei Baraglazov, Neil Poink. Is that
Pionk.
the name? Pionk. Neil Pionk. That's right. He scored the other night. And
Yep.
Andre Pavlik back in net to replace Antti Ranta. Pretty much the Rangers, they got rid of some good players, but they also brought in some good players. So
Right.
I'll go ahead and let you lead this discussion since you know them better than I do. But I think the Rangers definitely are going to be in the playoffs.
I think so too. Most seasons, 102 points should be good enough for a top 8 finish in the East, but not last season. The Rangers finished 9th and 4th in the Metro. I believe they are capable of getting at least that many points this season, Although they lost Stepan and Ranta, the addition of Kevin Shattenkirk will improve this team. And I think that you'll see things open up. Although we are going to miss Derek Stepan, I still think things will open up because it gives people like Kevin Hayes, and now these guys have to step up. They don't have any, there's nothing to fall back on. Kevin Hayes, JT Miller, Mika Zibanejad, they all have to produce. And I think they will. I think they will, and remains to be seen. But I think that, and I was impressed 2 nights ago with Lias Anderson. I can say now with confidence he's going to make the team. I think he'll make the team, and I wouldn't be surprised if he plays on the third or fourth line. So it's going to be interesting to watch how they go. But I've got the Rangers picked to finish third because I don't think Columbus, again, I think Columbus is going to drop some from their performance last year. And I've got Carolina finishing fourth.
Yep.
So it's going to be an interesting year, but
are you concerned about Pavlik replacing Ranta? That seems to be a downgrade.
It is. Listen, I watched him play the other night, and then recognize it's preseason, and you really don't put a lot of stuff. But he played very well. It was a game with a lot of action in front of the net in front of him. And guys that aren't normally on the team, a lot of guys competing for positions. And he seemed to be very confident and hold his own. So I thought he played very well. And, it remains to be seen how things go from here. But, I feel better about Andrei Pavlik today than I did last week during the podcast. I was really worried.
Yep.
And but it's going to take a few games, and it might be a confidence thing. We're going to miss Antti Ranta. It's just that simple. He's going to be Arizona's got a good goaltender, and look, you got to look at it this way. I'm counting on Henrik Lundqvist having 30+ wins this year. I really believe he will. I think he's going to have a good year, but you never know. You just don't know. So if he gets hurt. Unforeseen things happen.
Yep.
The Rangers are in trouble. So we'll just have to wait and see how things go. But I am picking them to finish third place. And I think it's going to come. You know what? I really think it's going to come down to the Rangers and the Penguins again. So we'll see how that goes. But I am encouraged by Kevin Shattenkirk because he can run the power play. And he is a proven power play maestro. He's very good at it. So I don't think that's going to, you're not going to see a step back in his game. He's going to come into New York and improve in that area.
Yep. Well, just the duo of Shattenkirk and McDonough back there to run the power play, that's going to be a nice thing if they don't use 4 forwards and Shattenkirk. But you've got Kreider, you've got Zibanejad, Zuccarello are all still there. JT Miller, Rick Nash, Jimmy Vesey. Buchnevich will have a year under his belt, so he should be all right. Kevin Hayes. Yeah, they've got a good core of forwards. Grabner, if he can continue the way he's been playing in the last year or so. Yeah, I mean that team looks very strong again this year. We'll put it that way.
Right.
All right. So, yeah, I got them in the playoffs, and obviously you do too. All right, let's move on to Philadelphia. 39-33-10 was their record last year, 88 points. They finished 6th in the division last year, 19th in the league. As far as players coming and going, players that are no longer with the team, Braden Shen, Steve Mason, Michael Del Zotto, Pierre-Edouard Ballamar, and Nick Cousins. Players coming in, they've got Nolan Patrick, who's their first-round draft pick this summer. He was 2nd overall. Yori Laterra and Brian Elliott has been brought in to take over the starting goalie duties with the departure of Steve Mason. This is a team that I see is young. They've got a lot of good prospects, and they're going to go through a lot of growing pains this year. I don't think this is a playoff team at this point, but they've got a lot of young prospects coming in, and this team could surprise if those prospects put up numbers right away. They're expected to have Nolan Patrick is expected to make the team. You got Samuel Morin back on D, Travis Sanheim back on D. They're both supposed to make the team this year. Time will tell whether or not that ultimately happens.
Right.
They've got a lot of young players. They still have Claude Giroux. They've still got Jacob Voracek, Wayne Simmons. They still got some decent pieces up front. Valerie Filppula, Oscar Lindbohm,
Sean
Couturier. So they've got some good pieces up front. Ivan Provorov, Shane Gostisbehere back on D, Radko Gudas, who's more of your stay-at-home guy, Brandon Mannion, Andrew McDonald, Travis Sanheim again, is supposed to make the team. So, they got some decent pieces on back, but I don't think with the competition that they've got in the Metro Division that Philadelphia is going to have enough to get them over the hump to get them into the playoffs this year.
Right.
But watch out in the future for this team.
In the area where Philadelphia is, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens, is on the power play, because Philadelphia for the last several seasons has had a powerful power play.
Yep.
And Braden Shen is a big loss because he was the #1 power play goal scorer in the NHL last year.
Yep. Well, Gostisbehere will be the quarterback, at least in terms of the defenseman anyway.
Right. So, at me as a Rangers fan, I'm always scared about Wayne Simmons. He's always in front of the net. In the power play, he is ruthless. He's very good. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Philadelphia's special team play with the loss of some of these guys. And, I can tell you from years of watching the Flyers, they get picked to be the middle of the pack or 6th position, and then they get into the season and they get on a roll.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, here's Philadelphia 3rd or 2nd place, and you didn't pick them, and it can happen. So I never count them out. Never count out Philadelphia. They have an uncanny way of getting in the playoffs when you don't expect them to. I don't pick them to do that, but stranger things have happened. I got them finishing 6th, but I'm anxious to see their power play.
Yep. Yeah, and then how well will Brian Elliott play? He
That's a good point.
He didn't do enough in Calgary to keep his job there. So, and I joke with one of the guys I play hockey with at the rink. He's Flyers fan. And I'm like, goalies and Flyers jersey for some reason aren't a good mix because they haven't had a really solid #1 goalie in a very long time there in Philadelphia. It just seems to be a revolving door. And I think Brian Elliott's brought in to essentially, fill that gap. And the question is, how long can he play well before they end up having to bring in Michael Neuwirth?
Right. That's right. And Neuwirth, didn't he have some injury trouble last year? I'm trying to remember.
He did, but he should be healthy this year.
Okay. He's a good goalie.
Yep. He can be a bit streaky, but he has nights where he's really good and nights where he's not so much. But
right.
But he'll be a decent backup for Elliott. But that remains to be seen. All right, let's move on to the team that both of us love to hate, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Last year's Stanley Cup champions finished 50-21-11 with 111 points overall last year. And they actually finished 2nd in the division. Go figure. And they were 2nd overall. Of course, players coming and going. They've lost Nick Bonino, Marc-Andre Fleury, Chris Kunitz, Trevor Daley, Ron Hainsey, Mark Streit, and Oscar Sundqvist. And players coming in, they've got Greg McKegg, Ryan Reeves, Matt Hunwick, and Antti Niemi to back up Matt Murray. My initial impression with the Penguins has been all summer with all the players that they've lost. Yeah, they're not their top end players, but man, they took a real big hit to the depth of this organization.
I agree.
Now you could make a case too that Chris Letang essentially is a newcomer coming in, so they didn't have him the entire playoffs. So having him come back is kind of like, it's going to feel like an addition to the team. It's going to make them that much better. So, him coming back is going to be big for them. But I don't think we're going to see 111 points out of Pittsburgh. Don't get me wrong; they're going to easily make the playoffs again this year because the core of that team is still there. You still got Matt Murray in net. You've still got Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin. You've got Phil Kessel. I mean, the heart of this team is still there. Chris Letang, Justin Schultz, Brian Dumoulin is a young player that's an up-and-comer that is going to be very good for them. So the heart of this team is still there, which means they're going to easily make the playoffs. But it's not going to come as easy to them this year. They're going to come back to the pack a little bit.
Right. I agree. I think if you look at their defense, you got like 4 defensemen, and if you haven't drilled it into my head, it's been proven that's all you need to win a Stanley Cup. But if there's a chink in the armor, if something happens, they don't have, their defense is good, real good, but they're shining. Once again, they're Matt Murray and their potent offense is what really gets them going. And they're good on special teams too. So, their defense, I would say, is the weakest, if there is a weakness, the weakest part of that team.
Oh yeah. Even with Chris Letang, he's, they're clear number 1, but there's a big drop off after that.
Right. So, that's of course where teams are going to attack, and Matt Murray's going to have a great year again, which I have no doubt that he probably will. It's going to be interesting come playoff time, March, late March. Then you're looking at 3 seasons in a row. They have to be the team who's played the most playoff games. Is fatigue going to be a factor? I think it will.
I think it will.
Think it'll be a big factor.
Yep.
When they get in the playoffs and they have to go in the grind against, might be the New York Rangers, might be the Washington Capitals, could be the Carolina Hurricanes. They're going to have to really have that extra gear. Will they have it? And I don't know there.
Yep.
I think fatigue is going to be a real.
Yep. There's a lot of people that refuse to. There's a lot of people picking them to win the Stanley Cup again this year, and
Yep.
basically their mindset is, well, until they lose it, they're the best team. Even with the players they lost. But here's the problem with the players they lost are solid third liners.
Right.
And even sprinkle in a couple of second liners in there. You start taking a hit to that depth. It has been proven time and time again. You need a 4-line deep team to win the Stanley Cup this day and age.
That's right.
Because of the grind that you just mentioned, especially in this case where Pittsburgh has played 25, 26 games each of the last 2 years, in addition to a full regular season.
Right.
And a lot of these players have also played internationally in the World Cup and the Olympics before that, and that is so much hockey to play for at the the highest level.
Right.
It's going to be difficult for them to maintain that into another 100+ game season.
Right.
For them.
That's right.
And it may not show in rounds 1 and 2, but when you get to round 3, the conference final. And if they get up against a team that hasn't been in the conference final the last couple of years, say Washington, for example, breaks through and makes it all the way to the conference final against Pittsburgh, they haven't played nearly as many games. They could steamroll the Pittsburgh Penguins in a late round matchup.
You and I talked about it last year. I still can't believe Washington didn't beat them. Washington had them.
Yep.
and lost that series. They had them. They had them where they needed, and they couldn't win it.
Couldn't put it
So,
away. Yep.
oh, so I wouldn't be surprised. And let me tell you, if they don't do it this time, if Washington falls on their face this time, it's going to be major changes to that team. And not saying they didn't make major changes, but it's going to be Pittsburgh's going to have a much tougher go this time to win the third Stanley Cup than they did either of the previous two.
Yep. Yep, they are, because they are a weaker team this year, bottom line. So I still have them in the playoffs easily, but I don't. I will not be picking the Pittsburgh Penguins to win the Stanley Cup. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Partially because I don't want it to happen, but also because I don't think they can stand up to that grind for a third straight year. Yeah. Now, as far as prospects coming in, they've got Derek Pouliot, a defenseman that's expected to make the team. He's been in the American Hockey League for the last couple seasons, and that is pretty much it. As far as players that they're expected to make the team this year. Their top prospect, that at least what according to the Hockey News, is a kid by the name of Zachary Lauzon, which is actually the younger brother of Jeremy Lauzon, who's in the Bruins organization. He's still several years away, though. But they've got pretty high hopes for him. He was drafted 51st overall this year. All right, let's move on to our final team we're going to talk about tonight. And that is, you just mentioned it earlier, the Washington Capitals.
Yep.
Last year they finished first in the division with I'm still pulling it up here. All right. They finished with a 55, 19-8 record, total of 118 points. Finished first in the division, first overall, won the President's Trophy, went into the, I think it was the second straight year, went into the playoffs as the overwhelming favorite to win the Cup, and they fell on their face for the umpteenth time in a row. They still have yet to get out of the second round in the Alexander Ovechkin era, and fair or not to blame him, the fact is, with him on the team, they have yet to get out of the second round. So until that changes, he's going to take his fair share of the blame for that. But as far as players are concerned, players that are no longer with the team: Carl Alsner, Kevin Shattenkirk, Justin Williams, Marcus Johansson, and Nate Schmidt. Players coming in: Tyler Grovak, Devontae Smith-Pelly, and that is all I have for newcomers.
Yep.
So this is another team that, and this one is more for salary cap reasons than anything, that had to shed some of their talent, and that is a lot of talent that has left the team. All those guys were key players. All the guys that I mentioned were key players on that roster last year. So I think Washington is taking a serious step back, probably more so than Pittsburgh.
Right.
Washington has taken a serious step back and will be in a dogfight again for a playoff spot. I potentially could see Pittsburgh winning the division this year and the Rangers in second and Washington third. That's how far I think Washington has gone down in terms of talent. But they still have, like the Pittsburgh Penguins, they still have the core of their roster intact. They've still got Alex Ovechkin. They still got Nick Backstrom. They still got TJ Oshie. They've still got John Carlson back on D. They've still got Matt Niskanen, who's a pretty decent D himself. They still got Vezina, annual Vezina finalist Braden Holtby back there in goal. Right. And Grubauer is a pretty decent backup, so they're going to be fine in net. They still got Burakovsky, Evgeny Kuznetsov, Tom Wilson, Lars Eller, Brett Connolly. They still got a fair amount of talent back there, but the team is just not going to be as deep as they were last year.
That's right.
So it's a little bit more top heavy than they were. They're going to have to fill in some of those gaps with some young players. Some of the young players they've got coming up: Jacob Vrana, Madison Bowie is a defenseman. Vrana's a left winger. Chandler Stevenson, a center, is expected to make the team. So you got some young kids coming up for Washington. At some point in the future, Ilya Samsonov will end up being part of the picture, which he is their number one prospect. But Ilya Samsonov is a goaltender. Played in the KHL last year. And with Braden Holtby in net, to have Holtby and Samsonov, something's got to give there.
Right.
Because if you've got your top prospect in the entire organization as a goalie, and you already have one of the best goalies in the league, who's still very young,
right,
you might see them move somebody,
right,
at some point, like
right.
especially if they have another expansion draft.
Oh,
God
yeah.
forbid. Pittsburgh,
Yep.
or Washington might end up with the same problem Pittsburgh had in the goaltender situation.
That's right.
They'll have to move Holtby and keep Samsonov if he's as good as advertised. But the thing I see with Washington, again, it's going to be a team that's going to easily make the playoffs, or fairly easily make the playoffs. But it won't be as easy as it was last year. I don't think Washington's going to be a President's Trophy winning team this year.
I think the chances of them being a President's Trophy team are better than the chances of Pittsburgh three-peating.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know that either of those. I don't believe either of those are going to happen. And I think you're right. Washington had a big chunk of talent leave that team. However, they still got a powerful offense if you look at them on paper. They really do. And Ovechkin has to step up this year. I understand last year he's playing hurt, but they've got to have production from him. TJ Oshie has to step up. So it's going to be an interesting season to watch them. But you know how Washington is. If they get on a roll, man, they can win, especially in the regular season. They seem to just flourish.
Yep. And all the reports I'm seeing out of Washington, Ovechkin is coming in better shape than he was this time last year. Obviously, he doesn't have the injuries that he was dealing with like he was last year. So I think you're going to see a better Ovechkin this year. I think you're going to see a refocused Ovechkin. So
right.
So look for him to bounce back and put up more than than he did last year in terms of goals and points. Ovechkin only had 33 goals, and we're used to 40 plus from him on an annual basis. So, I mean, Washington will make the playoffs. It's just how far they go at this point, and are they good enough to beat Pittsburgh anymore? Last year, yeah, like you said, they had them. They should have beat them, but they didn't.
Yep.
This year they'll be, Pittsburgh's weaker. Washington's even weaker than that. So I think Pittsburgh and Washington are probably on equal footing. Although I'd at this point put Pittsburgh a little bit above Washington.
Mm-hmm. You might be right.
And it's just going to be. Both teams have come back down to earth a little bit. They won't roll through teams like they did last year, but remains to be seen. All right, well, that's it for the team-by-team previews. Now, before we get going, we will I know you've made a 1 through 8 pick on who's going to finish where.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go ahead and do that, and then I'll see if mine agrees with you.
You're gonna disagree with me, Wayne. I'm gonna tell you right off the bat. I picked the Capitals to win the division again.
Okay.
Because of the fact that Braden Holtby is so strong. They just, if he has a poor season, the Capitals are gonna fizzle. But I don't think he will. I think he's strong in net, and I think they've got enough offensive power. In the regular season, they do well. followed by Pittsburgh to finish second. Third, I've got the New York Rangers. Fourth, I've got the Carolina Hurricanes. Fifth, I've got the Columbus Blue Jackets. Sixth, I got Philadelphia. Seven, the Islanders. And eight, the New Jersey Devils.
Okay.
I could see Columbus and Carolina swapping places, but I believe it. That's a heart pick because I see how the work that Carolina's put in the last 3 years to really improve their team, and I believe in my heart they have.
Yep.
So,
All right. Well, I actually have Pittsburgh winning the division, followed by Washington, followed by New York. I've got Columbus fourth, only because I think Bobrovsky will be back to his form that he was before, and then I've got Carolina fifth, but still making the playoffs. I have 5 teams coming out of this division.
Okay.
Sixth, I have the Islanders, and then seventh, I've got the Flyers, and then eighth, the Devils.
Wow. Could easily happen that way.
Yep.
Could easily happen that way.
All right. Let's move on to our minor league hockey minute. And I don't know if you had a story or not. I don't have one written down for you, but go ahead if you do.
Okay. Yeah, I have a story. And this may be the only time I report on these guys this year, but my favorite team in the KHL is, of course, Admiral Vladivostok. And they did something. They're having a terrible year, Wayne. I think they played 11 games and they've won 2.
Oh, wow.
They've got 10 points. I checked the standings today, so they're really struggling. But they did something quite spectacular. They beat the mighty CSKA Army men 3-1 and snapped CSKA's 9-game winning streak last Saturday. And the article I have is entitled Army Men Sunk in a Naval Battle. Admiral Vladivostok 3, CSKA 1. Admiral snapped CSKA's 9-game win streak as Vladimir Kachov got his first goal of the season. Remember that name, Vladimir Kachov. That's a guy who I think will be on the Russian team come February.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Kachov, not to be confused with his namesake at Akbars, is ranked as one of the brightest prospects in the Far East. But in the early stages of the season, he struggled for form along with the rest of his team. It was fitting then that his first goal of the campaign sealed Admiral's most impressive performance to date. He struck in the 24th minute of the third period, dumping the puck into the corner for Vadim, and I hope I get this name right, Krasnoslobodtsiev. Krasnoslobodtsiev.
Your guess is as good as mine.
To chase and heading to the net to collect his teammate's return pass to make it 3-1. The goal came 2 minutes after Krasnoslobodtsiev had put Admiral back in front with an assist from Kachov. CSKA was felled by those 2 early goals in the third period. God, these pages are stuck together. And struggled to get its offense going at the end of a long road trip. And they did. They played a long road trip, but they did win 9 in a row, and that winning streak was finally snapped. So I was glad to see that. I probably won't be able to report again on Admiral, but do watch out for Viktor Kachov. I think they're touting him as the best player in the Far East.
Good.
And as you know, Vladivostok's way over at the edge of Russia. It's almost in the I don't know what sea that is, whether it's the Pacific or
the Bering Sea.
The Bering Sea. It's way over there.
Yep.
So, anyways, that's the news I got out of the KHL.
Cool. All right. Well, some of the news, of course, KHL is now not only the only league going right now. They're probably more advanced into their season than anybody. And I did notice in the KHL when I was looking for stories there, St. Petersburg is still undefeated.
Yep.
That's the SKA, or formerly known as Red Army team. They're 12-0 after 12 games, and they've scored 54 goals. Only allowed 18. That's scoring at a 4.5 goal rate. That's like 1980s good.
Yeah.
So that's one story I had out of the KHL. But another name that popped up to me when I was looking at the Finnish league, because they're a good 4 to 6 games into their season. Of course, none of the leagues over here in the U.S. have gotten going yet. There's no major juniors yet, although they start this week. There's no AHL, ECHL. None of that starts until the NHL gets going. So there's really nothing going yet here in the U.S., but over in Europe they are, and largely because a lot of the European countries have the Olympics built into their schedules, so they got their season started earlier than everybody else. But anyway, Eric Perrin is a name I ran across. I don't know if you know him.
Sounds familiar.
Well, he was teammates with Tim Thomas and Marty St. Louis at the University of Vermont. That trio, for a 4-year span at the University of Vermont from, let me see if I can pull it up here, from 93, 94 through 96, 97, that trio, Eric Perrin, Marty St. Louis, and Tim Thomas, basically were the heart and soul of that University of Vermont team. And Eric Perrin and Marty St. Louis were line mates. And if you think Marty St. Louis is a small guy, Eric Perrin's even smaller. He's only 5'9", 176. Just a small guy. He had a short stint in the NHL. He played He played in 4 seasons, but he really only played 3 full seasons in the NHL, from 2006 through 2009. But since then, he has been playing in the Finnish league and has been pretty much a point-a-game player for them. Now, he is off to a good start there in the Finnish league. He's in the top 10 in scoring. He's got 7 points in 6 games so far this year. So just wanted to highlight him as a basically former NHLer that is still playing. I was surprised to see his name because, Marty St. Louis, of course, is already retired.
Right.
But Eric Perrin is now, he's continuing to play, and he's over there in the Finnish league and is still lighting up the scoreboard over there.
Wow, that is good.
At pretty much a point-a-game pace.
Wow.
All right.
How old would he be now, Wayne?
Well, he was born in 75, so that would make him 41.
Wow. Yep.
But he's still playing.
That is really good.
Good for him.
Yep. Yeah.
His NHL career or days are long over, but he's still putting up good numbers over there in Finland. All right, let's move on to our picks of the week. And you had one about Brian Boyle.
Yes. And I heard this news, and I was kind of shell-shocked for a few minutes, but let me give you my take on it. New Jersey center Brian Boyle has been diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia and said the following: "I feel very fortunate and very blessed," Boyle said Tuesday. "We've had a tremendous outpouring of prayers, and if there's anything I can ask, it's that continues. That is something that I've seen firsthand heal cancers and heal situations that are said to be untreatable. For us, we're in a good spot. We think we have a good plan of attack here, and I'm looking forward to getting on the ice and playing and playing. The disease known as CML is a type of cancer of the bone marrow that is largely treatable with medication." Dr. Michael Farber said Boyle, and he's the sports internist for the New Jersey Devils, said Boyle is in the early stages of the disease, which was revealed by blood tests taken Thursday during Boyle's training camp physical. We are awaiting further test results that will help guide the management and any possible return to play, Farber said. Boyle, 32, signed a 2-year, $5.5 million contract with the Devils on July 1st. He had 25 points, 13 goals, 12 assists in 75 games for the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Toronto Maple Leafs last season. The Maple Leafs acquired Boyle in a trade with the Lightning on February 27th. He has 169 points, 93 goals, 76 assists in 624 games for the Maple Leafs, Lightning, New York Rangers, and Los Angeles Kings, and 28 points, 15 goals, and 13 assists in 106 Stanley Cup playoff games in 10 NHL seasons. His goalie and good friend, Corey Schneider, said the following about him. He said that he knew about Boyle's condition before it was released, before it was made public. We've been spending a lot of time together lately, Schneider said. They live right around the corner from us. We've been getting rides to the rink, and the kids have been hanging out with each other. It's been great to see him more, so I think I was as blown away as everyone else. You look at a guy, a pro athlete and a friend, obviously they seem okay, but to have something like that, it's really, really heavy, especially with his father and what he went through. And as you might not know, Boyle's dad, Artie, was diagnosed with cancer in 1999. He defeated it, and he's been cancer-free since. And I wanted to emphasize the fact that I've watched this guy play with the New York Rangers for several seasons. And if ever there was a guy who was gritty and determined and confident, played with a lot of confidence, it was Brian Boyle. So I don't really see this as being any more than just something that he's going to take head on and, put everything he has into it to defeating it. And I believe he will. I really do. They say that this type of cancer is treatable with medication, so we'll see what the doctors come up with. But my hat's off to Brian Boyle, and I know my wife and I speak for my wife too. She loves him. So I really hope that this is something that is a blip on the radar and doesn't take him from hockey. I hope he sticks around and he's able to survive this as the true guy, gritty guy that I've seen on the ice for these many years.
Yeah, and it looks like they caught it early enough so they should be able to treat it for him. So yeah, our thoughts go out to him and his family as they go ahead and fight this.
Yeah.
All right, my story is a little bit better news, but the NHL has a new rule about requiring teams to have an emergency goalie in the building for every home game that can be used for either team in the case of an emergency. And the Devils and the Kings took it one step further. They decided to have tryouts for the emergency goalie position. And basically what this is, if you remember George Alves here in Carolina last year, ended up playing in a game only for about 8 seconds, but he still ended up getting into a game. He's basically an assistant equipment manager for the Hurricanes, but he ended up actually getting, having to serve as a backup, and then they ended up putting him in a game just to, as a thank you for him for doing that. So, but this year they have this new rule that every team has got to have every game that goes on, and there has to be an emergency goalie in the building, just in case something happens to one of the goalies for any of the teams that they need to have. And then that goalie would be available to play for either team playing that night. So, but the Devils and Kings had an open tryout for that spot. And the Devils open tryout was taking place at the Prudential Center on September 23rd at 1 p.m. And to participate, prospective goalies must be between the ages of 18 to 35 to be able to attend the tryout, home games, and potentially practices, have full equipment of their own, have played at a high level higher than high school. So they're not even taking high school goalies. You got to be cut above that. And then, of course, the Devils staff and alumni will be leading that tryout. The Kings Open tryout will be September 27th at 1 p.m. at Toyota Sports Center in El Segundo, California, which I believe is their practice facility. To participate in their tryout, candidates must be 18 years old and have played at a high level amateur hockey but never signed a pro contract. The open tryouts came after a new NHL rule that requires teams to have an emergency goalie on hand to use at every game this season for either team. So, quotation, we thought that this would be a good opportunity to see who in our area is best qualified for the job, Kings president Luc Robitaille said. It will be interesting, that's for sure. 30 goalies will be chosen for the Kings tryout, and those interested in participating can apply here, and there's a link in the article. Those interested in trying out for the Devils can apply here, and then again, there's a link in the article. So calling out to all goalies around, if you want to try out to be the Devils or Kings emergency goalie, you can go ahead and do so. Apparently, all the other teams know who they're going to do or use, or they're just keeping their tryouts a little bit secret. So. But,
that's very interesting.
But yeah, we get another story about these goals. I love the whole throw the goalie in situation.
Oh yeah,
I love that story. So.
That George Alves story last year was just, oh man, that was really something.
Yep.
I was really happy for him, especially he's equipment manager, right?
Yeah, he's an assistant equipment manager for the Canes. Yeah.
Be interesting as heck to see him if he gets back in the game again. That would be unbelievable.
Yep.
But
and I would imagine a lot of teams are just going to hire somebody because most teams you need a third goalie in practice,
right?
Because your two goalies are only going to be they're not going to be available 100% of every single practice,
right?
So you almost need a third guy just to fill the nets when one of the goalies can't be out there for whatever reason, equipment issue,
right?
Personal issue, got to pee, whatever it is,
Yeah, that's true.
So you would think the teams, I mean, to hire some young kid to just fill the nets, be on the practice squad, so to speak, I can't imagine would be a problem for most teams to have. There's got to be some young kid that can have the schedule that can obviously meet that need to show up at every practice. Who knows? It's something I'll keep an eye on here in the local area and see what comes of it. I know the Canes have Alves, so he's doing another job when he's not playing in net, but he does go out there for most practices.
Yeah.
All right, and the other honorable mention story I had was did you see the New Jersey Devils fan that got freezing tickets by simply tweeting the Devils and saying how many retweets will it take to get season tickets?
I did not see this one, Wayne. You got to tell me.
You didn't see that one?
No.
All right, well, New Jersey Devils fan tweeted the team asking how many retweets for free season tickets. And the Devils actually responded, and they came up with a mathematical structure. So they took this is the 35th anniversary of the team in New Jersey, and they multiplied that by all the retired numbers that the jersey has: 4, 3, 27, 30, and 26. Add those numbers together. You add those numbers together, multiply that by 35. That gives you 3150. Take that 3150, multiply it by the 3 Stanley Cups that they have, so you get a total number of 9450. So they said that's how many it's going to take. You need 9450 retweets for 27-18 full season tickets, and then they said you have 1 week. Good luck.
Oh my God.
So of course the Devils players got involved with this, and
He
They
obviously called out sick.
They started helping him get the so they were tweeting all their players and or all their fans and so on and so forth. But at about 9:15 later that night, less than a day after his initial request, he got 11,000. I can't remember the number. It was over 11,000 anyway. 11,000 retweets, and the Devils came back and said, "Congratulations, you get free season tickets."
God, that'll never happen again. He's a lucky guy.
Yep. So this guy, just by simply asking for it, they gave him a number, and
now
he made it without a problem.
Twitter, but what qualified as a retweet?
Well, basically, you take that tweet, his initial tweet says at New Jersey Devils, how many retweets for a season ticket? And 11,000 as of September 12th, or, several hours after that, 11,672 people clicked on that tweet and retweeted it. So you have to get 11,000 people to click on that retweet button and retweet that to their followers, and so on and so on. So, and what really helped him along the way is guys like Adam Henrique, Taylor Hall, Keith Kincaid. They all retweeted it to their followers, and then their followers retweeted it, and so on and so on and so on. So it basically went viral, and he ended up Kyle Palmieri. He also got in the act, and he got himself free season tickets. And then Adam Henrique recorded a video message for him, congratulating him for getting the season tickets. So he got himself.
That's a great story.
Yep, he got himself free season tickets by just simply asking for them.
Unbelievable.
And doing a little work on the side. So yeah, I can see now fans of every team doing the same thing. Hey, how many do I have to get for free season tickets?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, really something.
And the fan's name was Nick Donnelly. He's the one that ended up getting the free season tickets. So, all right. Well, that's it for the show. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here because, we've been yammering on now for quite a while. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And, just a reminder, retweet our tweets, whenever you see them. And, share the show with everyone that's a hockey fan that also listens to podcasts. We appreciate it. I know that several people have. And with that, we'll go ahead and end the show. And then right after the ending of the show, we'll get talking about the Fantasy Hockey League real quickly. So, all right. So until next week, Steve, I'll catch you about next week at this time, and we'll go from there.
You have a good week, Wayne.
All right,
good to
too.
be with you again.
All right. All right, and those for you that are sticking around for the fantasy hockey news, obviously we're going to be doing the Fantasy Hockey League. It's going to be named the Black Bear Fantasy Hockey League. It's the name that it had before we took a season off. And Steve and I, actually, the reason we got together yesterday at the local sports bar was to, first of all, it was the only day that Steve and I had to get together in person before the start of the NHL regular season. So we had to do it yesterday, but we got together to do a couple of things. We held a draft lottery, or a lottery to determine which teams ended up in which divisions, and then we did the draft lottery itself. So for those of you who are listening and haven't had a chance, I did tweet out and send an email to all of the people that are going to be participating in the Fantasy Hockey League. But for the rest of you, I sent out on our YouTube channel, I sent out a video that shows us actually doing the draft. So if you want to check that out, just go to thehockeynuts.com/YouTube and you'll be able to watch that video of us playing around at the ballpark.
Yeah.
But
what a great day for it.
Yeah, we had a great time. It was a nice day. It was a little on the warm side, but not so warm that it was unbearable. But anyway, So the results of the draft are as follows. First overall ended up being Scott Mount Campbell. Second overall ended up being Chris Warwick. Third, myself. Fourth ended up being Keith Taylor. Fifth ended up being Trevor Davidson. Now, I've had a change with him in the past few hours. Trevor Davidson has since dropped out of the league. He will be replaced by a friend of Scott Mount Campbell, who's the first overall pick winner. So those emails have been going back and forth this afternoon. So I have a spot. That spot will be taken by that friend of Scott Mount Campbell's. I've yet to get his name and email, but that fifth overall pick will end up being him. Sixth will be Reed Salata. Seventh will be Sean Wheel. Eighth will be Jason Hoyt. Ninth will be Ken Halley. 10th will be Alexis Smith. 11th will be Ken Kallenbach. 12th will be, as of the recording of the video, that team was vacant. I've since found an owner for that. The gentleman's name is Dave Huffner. That's actually another guy I play hockey with. 13th will be Tony Noche. 14th will be Seth Leibowitz. And 15th, there is no 15th. It's a 14-team league. So that's going to be the initial draft order in the first round. And then, like we said in the video, the rounds reverse. So odd number rounds go 1 through 14. Even number rounds go 14 back to 1. So that way it pretty much evens out and gives puts everybody on equal footing in terms of the draft position. Again, the league is going to be $50 to play. It's a keeper league, so which means at the end of this season, each team will be able to keep 3 players from the roster unless the league decides to increase or decrease that. But initially, it's set at 3. You'll be able to keep 3 players going into next season, and then we'll draft starting at the 4th spot in your roster. And it's a head-to-head league, of course. I'll be sending out information to all of the owners. As soon as I get the website set up, I'll send everything out in terms of all the rules, all the scoring systems, all that stuff that everybody needs to know going into the draft. The draft is scheduled for October 1st. That's a Sunday at 7 p.m. We're going to do it live using the CBS Sports information. And I don't know what else there is to say. We're getting everything going. We're excited about it, but yeah, that's pretty much all we have for right now. But we have all 14 spots filled. We are taking names of people because we may have, you just never know. You may have 1 or 2 more guys drop out of the league for whatever reason, decide at the last second that they don't want to play. Well, we may need 1 or 2 people to step in and take over teams that are already established. You would take over if, say, for example, 1 person drops out. You would take, if you were the next on the waiting list, you would take that spot in the draft order and that spot in the division. You basically take over that team as it is. At whatever point anybody drops out. So I am still looking for people that want to join the waiting list, that are willing to take over a team, at a very short notice, in case one of our current owners drops out of the league, because we do want to have all 14 teams represented in the league. And then, assuming we have a successful season, we will go ahead and probably expand to 16 next year. And I know Steve is going to be watching from the sidelines this year to learn how to play this game. He didn't want to commit to it this year because he's never done it before, and wanted to learn how to play the game before joining next year. But if we expand to 16 next year, one of those 2 likely will go to Steve, and then unless he takes over a team that's already existing, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Oh, and if you are watching us on the YouTube, of course, the podcast is, we videotape the YouTube as well. So if you want to watch that, or you don't even have to watch the whole thing, just fast forward to the end. I'm now holding up what is the championship trophy for this league.
Wow.
So as you can see, it's a pretty good sized trophy. Obviously, if you're listening, you can't see it, but we have some vacant spots on the trophy. Actually, there's 2 plates missing because the last 2 seasons that we had, 2013, 2014 is the last season we have in terms of a winner. So I need to add one for 14, 15 and 15, 16, which would go, 14, 15 would go actually up here, and then 15, 16 would go here. We did have 2 winners for those seasons. I just never got the plates made, and I do need to do that. So then the current season, the winner will fill up this side, and then we would move on to this side and this side, which each have 4 years remaining. And then when this is filled up, we'll add another base to the bottom, make it grow, just like the Stanley Cup did.
Yeah.
We're going to make it grow, put another base on the bottom, and then we'll end up having room for more names and more. And basically what it shows is, you can see, you have the year, the name of the team, and then the name of the owner goes on the trophy. And it's basically just a little tin bowl that actually my cousin, Ken, he was actually in the league this year. He's the one that built this. He built this part and this part. And, it's basically a cup with one square base and then a bigger square base underneath it. Well, he built the cup and the first square base, and then I added the bigger square base once the smaller one on top got filled up. And he built it because he was the very first winner of the league. And you can see his name right there, 2001, 2002. He was known as the Deadly Demons back then, and his name is on there. And my name is on there 3 times. Anyway, and Ken's on there a second time too. He's won it twice. He won it most recently in 2013. So,
Really neat.
so yeah, it's a competitive league. The guys that I do know that have played in the league in the past, they all know their stuff. So this league is not for lightweights. This you got to know your stuff to do well in this league. These are true hockey fans, and that's exactly what I was looking for. Was dedicated, bona fide hockey fans that wanted to be part of this fantasy hockey league. So we're off to our start. We've got all 14 slots filled for this year, but I am still taking names and email addresses for folks that want to be on the waiting list, and I'll take them on a first come first serve basis. If any spots do open up, you can go ahead and add your name, or we can add you to the list if somebody leaves. So. But in the meantime, it's time to, I still need to get the site set up, get the schedule put in, get the draft order set up, and get everything ready for the draft. And then, of course, between now and then, I've got to collect everybody's money for the prize pool. So we'll go ahead and do that in the next week or so. So if you are playing and you're going to be playing, we're going to be, I'll be sending out an email to all of the owners letting you know how to get the $50 to me. It's going to be done over PayPal, so we'll go ahead and get that out to everybody in the coming days, and then we'll go from there. So that's all there is to update on the Fantasy Hockey League. And games start October 4th. So, yeah. So that's pretty much it for that. So,
Yeah.
So, Steve, I know you're excited.
Oh, yeah. Very excited. I'm looking forward to this draft day thing.
Yeah, I'm going to have Steve on as a co-owner of my team, so that way he'll have access to the league. Because if you're not part of the league, you don't have access to it. It's a private league within CBS's infrastructure. So I'm going to put Steve on as a co-owner of my team. That way he'll be able to watch everything that I do, and he'll be able to sit in on the draft and participate in the chat and all that stuff right there in the draft room. So he'll be able to have fun along with us, just with no skin in the game, so to speak.
Yeah.
He'll just be our casual observer. And that was why I wanted to get together with him to do the draft pick, because I wanted, obviously an impartial witness there when we pick the draft order. That way we don't have anyone accusing us of cheating. So that was the reason for that. So, but that's done, and the draft order's set, and now we move on to getting ready for the draft, which will be October 1st. All right, that's it. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be neat. It's going to be a neat experience. And I would have got a team this year, but I just figured I'd fall flat on my face if I don't. I've never done anything like this, so I got to learn.
Yep.
It's a good opportunity to learn. So.
Yep. Well, good deal.
Yeah. I know you got to go to work.
I do.
So I'm gonna let you go.
Yep.
And,
I'm gonna grab a bite to eat and then go to work.
Okie doke. I will be in touch with you. Probably later this week or this weekend.
And then when I get home, I'll in the morning I'll go sleep a few hours, and then get up and probably edit the podcast after I wake up from probably sometime tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
And there is an outside chance I may need to referee tomorrow night, but I don't know as of yet if that's going to happen. I've told the guy who's trying to give up the games to try to find somebody else, because I don't want to do it, and I told him I'd do it if he can't find anybody else, because I don't like doing Thursday nights, but
right,
I may have to, so we'll see.
Okay.
All right,
sir.
I will go ahead and let you go. Yeah.
Yes, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Good night, Wayne.
All right. Good night. Have a good one.
You too.